Long Chen directly used his strongest saber attack. There was no need for any probing blows. The will of split the heavens was completely locked onto his target. It was simple and direct. Then let me experience your strongest attack. Gu Yu grew serious and suddenly moved. The dagger in his right hand appeared in front of him, while the dagger in his left hand appeared behind him. One was held normally, and the other was held in reverse. A circle then appeared in front of him. His blood chi fully ignited. In front of Long Chen's attack, he had to go all out as well. Ice Soul 9 Underworld Slash. The two daggers quivered and their images were projected, one yin and one yang, forming a giant taiji diagram. Boom. The next moment, the heavens collapsed and the earth was torn asunder. The ancient city was instantly turned into smithereens. Countless years of history were erased in an instant. Long Chen and Gu Yu both shook. They actually ended up even in this exchange. With a turn of his dagger, Gu Yu struck like lightning. His dagger was unbelievably fast, streaking toward Long Chen's neck like lightning. Boom. However, his dagger didn't strike its target because Long Chen kicked Gu Yu in the abdomen, sending him flying. Despite that, even though the dagger didn't even touch Long Chen, it had a strange law attached to it, and it sliced through the void, leaving a long bloody cut on Long Chen's neck. Even without touching his skin, he was injured and the golden dragon scales couldn't stop it. Gu Yu's attack was truly astonishing. Furthermore, frost appeared on top of the wound. A bone-chilling cold invaded Long Chen's body, almost freezing his blood. While Long Chen was injured, Gu Yu also suffered from the kick. The reason he was willing to exchange injury for injury was because he knew that once his ice fangs struck, Long Chen would be frozen. Without at least a few seconds, Long Chen couldn't recover. Then he would have a chance to kill him. But Long Chen's kick actually shook his insides badly. It felt like they almost exploded. Despite having shifted his heart-protecting mirror from his heart to the abdomen at that last second, Gu Yu was still unable to completely resist that overwhelming power. Even his heart-protecting mirror shattered. It was a king item that could absorb any power for its master so that they wouldn't be injured in the slightest. Compared to soft-skin armor, this mirror armor was able to fully absorb that power. Soft armor could only block a portion of any attack. Ordinary soft armor could block 70% of an attack's power at most. Furthermore, if their limit was broken, it was all too easy for the materials to deform, resulting in the runes being displaced and causing the armor to be damaged easily. However, mirror armor was different. It could fully absorb the full power of any attack. The problem was that once the amount of power it absorbed surpassed its limit, it would shatter. Long Chen's kick had directly shattered his mirror armor and shaken his insides. He was lucky that his mirror armor was made of good enough materials, or that one kick might have killed him. That was because an assassin's physical body wasn't very powerful. Originally, Gu Yu's goal was to use the mirror armor to block Long Chen's attack and then kill Long Chen while his body was frozen. However, he was the one hacking up blood from Long Chen's attack instead. In this exchange of blows, he was the one who suffered the most. The blood coming out of Long Chen's neck froze, leading to a blockage in his aura. This made him unable to unleash his full power. With a cold snort, a flame lotus appeared on Long Chen's left hand, and he unleashed his palm. Flames exploded, but this attack missed. Gu Yu had vanished. At the same time, the ice chi on Long Chen's neck was erased. The wound healed, and his chi once more began flowing smoothly throughout his body. Boom! Long Chen's saber swung behind him, causing the void to explode. Gu Yu's figure reappeared, but after that brief delay, he had also recovered from his wound. The saber and dagger clashed, unleashing divine light. After that, the taiji diagram around Gu Yu shone brightly. The power of yin and yang? As they cycle, my power is dispersed into the air. This pair of weapons is really great. Long Chen narrowed his eyes. In these two clashes, Long Chen had finally seen through the clues of these daggers. This pair of divine items was one yin and one yang. As yin and yang circulated, they formed a special force field that absorbed Long Chen's power and released it. The reason Gu Yu was able to split the heavens wasn't due to his own power, but due to the marvelous ability of this pair of daggers. They could absorb and release energy. The dagger that Guyu was pointing behind him suddenly pierced forward, and a wild power erupted. On the other hand, Long Chen felt a suffocating feeling. Boom! The runes on his bone saber quivered. A fiery light exploded between it and the dagger, devouring this entire space. Flames spurted into the heavens, and the world was ignited. This other dagger of Guyu's actually contained flame energy. One ice, one flame, one yin, one yang. When they were combined, they produced endless magical properties. Long Chen was forced back over 10 steps before stabilizing his body. "How does it feel to be struck by your own power?" sneered Guyu. Just now, he had absorbed Long Chen's power, releasing a portion of it into the air and using another portion of it to attack. Switching out the ice dagger for the flame dagger, he then struck Long Chen with both their powers. "It's only a little trick. I would guess that the only reason you managed to climb to rank 2 of the Heaven Fiend rankings is not due to your actual power, but those daggers." "How pitiful," said Long Chen as he shook his numb hand. This was Long Chen's first time encountering someone using his own power to strike him. However, considering how forceful Long Chen's power was, it was mostly of the yang attribute, while Guyu's energy deviated toward the yin side, resulting in him only being able to reflect a small portion of Long Chen's power. Despite that, Long Chen definitely had lost out in that exchange. Those daggers were truly bizarre. "You're the pitiful one. My weapons are naturally a part of my power. What is there to question about my power?" demanded Guyu furiously. This surprising amount of anger was due to Long Chen touching his sore spot once more. Long Chen was clearly not the only one who had said something like this to him. When it came to just pure power, Guyu truly wasn't much stronger than the rank 7 Tianmo. However, Long Chen felt that considering that their ranking was so different, there shouldn't be such a little difference. Rank 2 should be much stronger. He hadn't expected that casually saying this would cause the truth to come out. This fellow had really relied on his weapons to reach rank 2, and not his actual power. "Die, you trash-talking trash." Guyu roared, his blood chi igniting. As his daggers glowed, both ice and flame energy filled the world. After that, 2 horned monsters appeared behind him. Those 2 horned monsters were nameless devils. They were the item spirits of the daggers, and their power caused the void to collapse around them. Isn't it said that only experts on the level of a heaven-tier immortal king can activate the item spirit of a king item? Exclaimed Bai Xiaola. Although they all had king items, they were only able to unleash a very small portion of their power. Unless they could have the item spirit accept them like Bai Shishir, there was no way for them to unleash their true power. However, even Bai Shishir had to be very careful while using her golden sword. One careless mistake would suck up all her spiritual yuan and injure her with a backlash. King items were for world kings, and one had to be at least a heaven-tier immortal king to fully unleash their power. For the likes of Bai Xiaola and the others, using king items was mostly just to intimidate people or to display their status. For someone in the Four-Peak realm to use a king item was like a child waving around a hammer. It was even possible for them to accidentally smash themselves to death. The majority of king items couldn't even bother to pay attention to such children, so most of their king items were in slumber. They didn't care at all about their master's life or death. However, Guyu had summoned the item spirits of his daggers. Their power raged, sealing this entire world. Guyu had his sore spot touched by Long Chen. The anger drove him to unleash this trump card. "Now it's up to Long Chen to block it," said Bai Shishir. She was vigilantly holding her golden sword. If Long Chen couldn't receive it, then she would interfere. However, there would be no way for her to hold back against Guyu. All her power would be sucked dry in a single attack, and she might even fall into slumber. Only a full power attack could stop those figures. Did I say something wrong? Without these 2 divine weapons, you might not even be a match for Tianmo. "What? Are you angry out of embarrassment?" asked Long Chen disdainfully. "Die!" Guyu roared furiously, his face going from red to white. As if afraid he couldn't kill Long Chen, all his power poured into his divine weapons. After this attack, he probably wouldn't even be able to stand. Do you have that ability? Sneered Long Chen. He put away his bone saber. At this point in time, he didn't even have time to unleash Split the Heavens. After forming hand seals, the space in front of him quivered and a golden pill furnace appeared. It was a king item formerly known as the Day-Night Furnace. Leng, show him who is the real king, shouted Long Chen. The pill furnace rumbled, and one rune after another lit up. As they did, the pill furnace's divine pressure rapidly rose, like a volcano that had stored up energy for millions and millions of years erupting. Not good. The four elders watching the fight finally changed their expressions. They were well aware that the reason why Guyu could summon the item spirits of the daggers was because of a bloodline connection. If it wasn't for that, at most he would only be able to unleash around 20% of his king item's power. As for Long Chen, the Demon Moon Furnace had 50% of its runes light up. Their power made even them feel terror. Boom. They wanted to interfere after seeing this, but they were too late. Long Chen had perfectly timed it, not giving them any chance to save him. The Demon Moon Furnace then smashed into the two daggers. During this clash of king items, the void exploded and countless giant cracks spread throughout the void. Time was like a mirror that had been shattered. Terrifying ripples blew Long Chen back, making him grunt. Although he had been prepared for this shockwave, he felt like his bones would shatter. However, Guyu had it even worse than him. His physical body was directly blasted apart, and he fled with only his Yuan spirit. Furthermore, his Yuan spirit was covered in cracks like crystals about to shatter. "Save me!" Guyu cried out, fleeing for his life when he saw that Long Chen was fine. "Weren't you very arrogant?" Long Chen sneered and extended his hand, grabbing Guyu's Yuan spirit. Just then, the might of 4 Earth-tier immortal kings erupted and space instantly froze. The might of an Earth-tier immortal king was absolute. All others became ants. However, this frozen space was then shattered by a golden sword slashing through the air. It completely ignored the absolute might of the Earth-tier immortal kings and slashed toward the 4 of them. Bai Shishir attacked at this critical moment. The 4 of them hadn't even cared about Bai Shishir and the others, but Bai Shishir's attack caused them to shriek. All 4 of their hands were severed by Bai Shishir's sword. "Slut, you're courting death." The 4 of them were shocked and enraged. The power of this attack had far surpassed their expectations. After that, space twisted and their hands exploded. Bai Xiaola had activated his 3 flower pupils to crush the hands. After leaving the main body, the hands no longer had the protection of an Earth-tier immortal king's might. So, those 4 hands were nothing more than 4 pig trotters at this time. If the 4 of them could simply grab their hands, they could immediately reattach them with no loss. But regenerating new hands required their core energy. This was why Bai Xiaola did this. "Save me!" Guyu's Yuan spirit was in Long Chen's hand, and he screamed wretchedly. None of his former arrogance remained. As for his 2 divine weapons, they had long since left him and vanished without a trace. The elders didn't even bother healing. Guyu was ranked 2 on the Heaven Fiend rankings, one of the pillars of the 9 Underworld Hall. Even the palace master cared about him. So, they shouted at Long Chen. "Release Guyu, otherwise dash." Before the elder could finish speaking, Long Chen had crushed his Yuan spirit. Violet lightning erupted from Long Chen's hand. He then scanned Guyu's spiritual fragments, flipping through his memories. Courting death. The 4 of them were enraged. Long Chen had actually slain Guyu right in front of them. Originally, they hadn't been planning on bringing Guyu, but after learning of this plan, Guyu chose to come and kill Long Chen before advancing to the Divine Lord realm, to add another illustrious achievement under his belt. Due to the hostility between the 9 Underworld Hall and the Bloodkill Hall, the Hall Master of the 9 Underworld Hall had ordered that Long Chen must be slain by one of his people. They couldn't allow the Bloodkill Hall to kill Long Chen. Moreover, Tian Mo had been killed, which was a slap in their face. Once Guyu learned of this, he naturally didn't want to let this opportunity go. As the 4 of them didn't want to offend this expert with limitless potential, they could only agree. Now, Guyu hadn't managed to win anything and even lost his life. Such a good thing had been ruined. They didn't know how they could explain themselves to the Hall Master. So they charged at Long Chen. They no longer even dared to kill Long Chen now. A dead Long Chen definitely wouldn't be enough to placate the Hall Master's fury. If they wanted to keep their lives, they had to capture Long Chen alive. Just then, the golden sword slashed through the air once more. The four of them hastily retreated. They were already shaken by that golden sword and didn't dare to face it directly. After forcing the four of them back once more, Bai Shirshi's face turned as pale as paper. She was already out of power. "Capture her too!" shouted one of the elders. He immediately thought of gifting the sword to the Hall Master to relieve some of their sins. Seeing that she had sharply overdrafted her power, the four of them reached toward her. But then a divine light lit up, and the four of them were shocked to find that they couldn't move. A crystalline stone had appeared in Long Chen's hand. He smiled disdainfully. "Did you really take me for a fool? Did you think I would send myself to my death here without some trump card?" Long Chen was holding the sect-maintaining divine stone, a miniature version of the foundation stone, and it contained endless power. This stone came from the foundation stone. It had a divine diagram on top of it, which appeared to be the entire 7th Branch Academy. This divine stone's energy was so strong that let alone an Earth-tier immortal king, even a Heaven-tier immortal king would be wiped out by it. This was Long Chen's true trump card. However, activating it required some time, and it just so happened that Bai Shirsher forcing the four of them back gave him the time to activate it. Even Bai Shirsher didn't know what that stone was. It was the special divine item of the Dean and related to the karmic luck of the Academy, so it was naturally a secret of the highest level. If this stone was damaged or lost, it would cause the foundation stone to grow unstable. It could even cause it to crack. The consequences were extremely grave. The foundation stone could not be moved or damaged. Otherwise, Lord Brahma's subordinates would have long since smashed it. However, if this sect-maintaining divine stone was damaged, then there would be a danger to the Academy. It could be considered to possess half the power of the 7th Branch Academy's core. Now that Long Chen had activated it, the four Earth-tier immortal kings were instantly frozen. "Die!" Long Chen snorted. As the stone in his hand glowed, space rumbled. The next moment, cracks covered the bodies of those Earth-tier immortal kings. "No!" The four of them struggled with all their might but were directly crushed by a supreme power. They appeared so weak in front of this stone. After the four Earth-tier immortal kings were slain, Bai Shirsher and the others sighed with relief. So Long Chen actually had such a terrifying trump card. However, all of a sudden, the blood mist of the slain Earth-tier immortal kings twisted and roiled as if it was alive. What? Qin Feng and the others were shocked. Just what was going on? Long Chen was also surprised. He started to have a bad feeling. The four clumps of blood mist suddenly exploded. The divine light coming from the heavens then transformed into a huge passageway. Following that, the world became dark and death chi filled this world. At the end of the passageway was a grave. It was unknown where this passageway led to, but it felt like there was no exit from it. Mist surged out as if the gates of hell were opening. "Long Chen, we meet again." When a voice rang out from the mist, Long Chen's heart leaped. "Enpuda!" As expected, a black-robed fatty manifested within the mist. A pair of triangular eyes with fat squeezing them from all sides appeared, glinting with cold light. He was smiling like a viper sticking its tongue out. He was the master of the Bloodkill Hall, Enpuda. It goes without saying that you're very smart. By walking a completely unnatural path, you actually managed to reclaim the 7th Branch Academy. I admit that I lost that time. But it's fine. In games, it's very normal to lose some and win some. And it seems that I won this one. Enpuda smiled at Long Chen from the passageway. His voice was pleasant. If it wasn't for his face, someone would assume that it was the voice of a kindly elder. Long Chen nodded. Not bad, as expected of a wily old fox. I was careless. I thought that this plan was made by the 9 Underworld Hall, but it was all a facade made by you. After killing Tian Mo, although Long Chen didn't have time to do a soul search, he managed to tell through the fragments of Tian Mo's soul that the 9 Underworld Hall had a hostile relationship with the Bloodkill Hall. According to Long Chen's calculations, Enpuda had given up temporarily and left the task to slay him to the 9 Underworld Hall. But unexpectedly, this was all arranged by Enpuda. Everything was under his control. Even the 9 Underworld Hall's people were used by him. How else could I make you fall for it? The 4 of them wore the Underworld Soul Passage Spirit Tablets, which can connect to the tomb of a world king at the end of this passageway. You and I are still not in the same heaven. I've never seen you with my true body, which is rude of me. But fortunately, we are connected by destiny, and I will quickly see you with my true body. Are you happy? Enpuda smiled. This smile caused his face to scrunch up, making his face look like a pile of dung. However, Bai Shirshir and the others didn't have any time to be disgusted. They were now in Enpuda's trap, and Enpuda had seen Long Chen's sect-maintaining divine stone. Despite that, he still appeared to have everything under control. Clearly, even this trump card was not enough. Now it was troublesome. Enpuda was truly worthy of being an old monster that had lived for countless years. They really were too immature compared to him. Truly amazing. This move of yours is well done. If I didn't appear, you would continue to kill everyone who opposed your rumors and then blame me for their deaths. Whether or not I was wrongly accused, the people trying to protect me would all die because of me, while I didn't stand up for them. Even false can be made true like that. If those 4 immortal kings didn't die, I would die. If they did die, this spatial channel would activate. Simply perfect, said Long Chen. Although he was mortal enemies with Enpuda, he had to admit that old monsters truly were old monsters. He really had fallen for it. You're not bad either. The number of times I've lost in my life can be counted on the fingers of one hand, but you've actually occupied one of those losses. That's enough for you to be proud of, said Enpuda indifferently. All right, the tomb's death spiritual energy has been prepared. Long Chen, are you ready? I'm going to activate the formation now. Although Enpuda asked, he immediately activated it before waiting for a reply. After that, death chi poured out of the spatial channel, and an intense attractive force drew Long Chen and the others closer and closer to it. None of them was able to stop themselves from involuntarily being drawn in. Long Chen, think of something, shouted Bai Shirshir. She was already powerless. Long Chen shook his head. There's nothing to think about. This wily old fox has prepared everything. If I activate the sect-maintaining divine stone, then I'd only be falling for his trap. It would be infected by this death spiritual chi, corroding the karmic luck of the 7th Branch Academy. If my guess is right, the 7th Branch Academy is already surrounded by experts. The sect-maintaining divine stone is connected to the foundation stone. So, if the foundation stone is shaken, the Grand Formation's power will be weakened, and they'll attack. Then the Academy's people will be slain, and even the foundation stone that they couldn't break before will be destroyed. After that, the 7th Branch Academy will be lost for good. It might even implicate the main Academy's karmic luck. It's that bad? Then what can we do? Bai Shirshir and the others were stunned. Enpuda's scheme was truly terrifying. Long Chen smiled. The sect-maintaining divine stone suddenly lit up, its light wrapping around Bai Shirshir and the others. Long Chen, what are you doing? Bai Shirshir cried out. A bad feeling rose in her heart. 4 chains suddenly shot out of the darkness, binding Long Chen's hands and feet. On the other hand, Bai Shirshir and the others were wrapped by the light of the sect-maintaining divine stone. The stone also left Long Chen's hand and fell into Qin Feng's hold. Boss? Qin Feng was shocked. His expression changed. I order you to protect the sect-maintaining divine stone, shouted Long Chen. Just at that moment, the 4 chains pulled Long Chen into the spatial channel. Long Chen's divine ring quivered, causing the channel to rumble and countless cracks to appear. Long Chen fought against the chains with all his power, and the runes on the chains began to fall. Use the divine stone's power to free Long Chen. Long Chen is close to getting away with his own power. He's just missing a bit, shouted Bai Shirshir. But Qin Feng simply held the stone and shook his head. Clenching his teeth, he said, "It's a trap." "What traps?" "Save Long Chen." Bai Shirshir cried out. They were enveloped by the stone's light, separating them from the channel's power. However, she cried out in panic and anger. If they waited any longer, Long Chen would be dragged out of their grasp. Qin Feng shouted, "Boss entrusted the divine stone to me, not you, precisely because he didn't want you to fall for Enpuda's trap. Boss definitely realized that this channel's main target is only him. That's why he gave us the divine stone. That way, the 7th Branch Academy can be protected." But Long Chen... Bai Shishir saw Long Chen struggling with all his might as his limbs were bound by the chains that sank into his flesh. Seeing him bleed, Bai Shishir felt like her own heart was bleeding. Qin Feng could tell what Long Chen wanted him to do. He knew that he had to maintain his calm at this time. Enpuda was letting them see Long Chen struggle as his goal wasn't just Long Chen. He wanted to destroy the 7th Branch Academy as well. As long as they still had the Divine Stone, the Academy was safe. But Enpuda was unwilling to let that go. Thus, he made them have hope, wishing that they would use the Divine Stone to save Long Chen. Once they did, they would fall for his trap. Although Bai Shishir normally appeared aloof and indifferent, she simply kept her feelings inside. In a moment of desperation, she wasn't able to maintain that calmness, which was why Long Chen had given the Divine Stone to Qin Feng. Right now, the one suffering the most was Qin Feng. He was unable to do anything and could only watch as Long Chen was pulled further and further away. "Little fellow, you're pretty ruthless. All right, since I can't destroy the 7th Branch Academy, I'll settle for only you." Enpuda's expression was gloomy. His plan had been seen through by Long Chen, so he was unable to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Considering that this passage pierced through multiple heavens, Enpuda was only able to fully lock onto one person. As his goal had been seen through, he knew that using this opportunity to eliminate the 7th Branch Academy along with Long Chen was no longer possible, so he didn't want to drag this out any longer for fear of something unexpected happening. Hence, the channel rumbled and black chi swirled out of the 4 chains. After that, their power shot up, and Long Chen was instantly dragged into the depths of the channel. Long Chen, boss, Bai Shishir, Qin Feng, and the others couldn't do anything. Could they really only watch as Long Chen died? Boom. Suddenly, an explosion came from within the channel. Long Chen, who was originally unable to break free and was thinking of how to use the primal chaos bead's power to handle Enpuda, suddenly broke free of one of the chains. Long Chen seemed to be caught between 2 spacetimes. In front of him was Enpuda, and behind him were Bai Shishir and the others. He was incredibly far from both sides. Bai Shishir and the others cheered. They thought that Long Chen had found a way to break the chains. But they didn't know that Long Chen hadn't done anything at all. Long Chen looked at Enpuda and saw that the latter's face was covered in astonishment. It seemed that he didn't know what was happening either. Boom. With another explosion, the chain binding Long Chen's right hand shattered and the channel quivered. Long Chen then looked at Enpuda and found that the latter was no longer at the end of the path. Instead, the path continued beyond him. At the end of it, Long Chen saw a wretched figure and almost cried out. It was a figure wearing a helmet that was as black as the bottom of a pot and holding a 3-foot-long shovel in his hand. He seemed to be digging something and was looking deeper into the channel. Nian. Long Chen couldn't believe his eyes. It was actually Nian, and Nian now turned to see him. Nian was shocked as well and rubbed his eyes. In disbelief, he asked, "Are you real or fake? I open a coffin and see you. Have I been bewitched? Hey, are you really Long Chen? When did you end up being one-eyed?" Long Chen had yet to recover from using the purgatory eyes last time, so he was still wearing an eye patch. With how long the channel was, and being unable to sense any auras from this distance, Nian didn't quite dare to believe it. "No way! It really is Nian." Qin Feng and Qi Yu cried out in shock. The spatial channel had now been split into 4 sections. The starting point was Qin Feng and the others, and then there was Long Chen's section. Originally, Enpuda was at the end, but now another section had appeared behind him. That was where Nian was. This channel was a straight path. Seeing Qin Feng and Qi Yu also shout out his name, Nian was delighted. He instantly concluded that he hadn't been bewitched. Before he could speak, Enpuda furiously shouted, "Who are you? You dare to ruin my affairs." Nian cursed, "You damn fatty, roll away. What qualifications do you have to interrupt when I'm talking?" Enpuda cursed, "You're the damn fatty. Are you blind? This is just some baby fat. I'm not fat. Understand? If you have the guts, report your sect and name. Let's see if I feel like digging up your ancestral graves," retorted Nian immediately. He very much detested it when others called him fatty. You are that bastard immoral Taoist's new apprentice?" exclaimed Enpuda. "So if you don't want your ancestors to see the sun, shut your mouth." After that, Nian directly ignored Enpuda and continued shouting at Longchen. "Longchen, what's going on? You don't seem to be having a good time. You're being dragged into someone else's rat hole? Do you need your big brother to stand up for you? Hey, damn, we ascended at the same time. How did you find more beautiful girls so quickly? Hey, if you can, you should introduce a few to me as well. I spend all day digging up tombs, doing archaeology. Yes, archaeology. After working through the earth all day, I don't even have a partner. I'm very lonely." It seemed as if Nian hadn't spoken to anyone in a long time, and a flood of words came out. After seeing Bai Shirshir, he immediately cried out about the injustice of the heavens. At such a time, he was actually chattering about this nonsense. Longchen had the urge to beat him. Did he not have eyes? He shouted, "Hurry up and break the chains." "Chains? Chains? There aren't any chains here," said Nian. "I was opening up coffins. When I opened the second one, I saw you." "Hurry and open the other 2 coffins," shouted Longchen hastily. Nian was startled. Longchen actually knew that there were 2 more coffins here. Without another word, he pried open the 3rd coffin with his shovel. Boom. As expected, when the 3rd coffin was opened, another one of the chains binding Longchen was broken. Only the last one was remaining. Courting death. Enpuda was enraged. With Nian's help, the final chain also shattered. Longchen escaped from his bindings. However, just as he was trying to return to his starting point, the spatial channel crumbled. After that, Longchen was devoured by fragments of spacetime. "Longchen!" Bai Shirshir, Nian, and the others cried out. But the channel vanished, and Longchen vanished with it. No way! Within an underground tomb, with countless ancient murals carved in the surroundings, Nian was standing atop a giant coffin. But at this moment, the spatial channel at the bottom of the coffin was gone. Furthermore, this tomb's solid stone walls began to sag, and the stones started to fall apart like sand. It was like all its energy had been used up, and it was about to collapse. Nian ignored the crumbling tomb and muttered to himself, "A spatial channel across heavens was made using this tomb's death spiritual chi. No wonder it was so easy to get in. Longchen was stuck in the middle of the channel when it crumbled, but there's no way that this fellow would die. However, within the cycle of the 6 Daos and 9 heavens, who knows where he's going to end up? Isn't this fellow's luck a bit too bad?" Nian was speechless. Just as he saw this fellow again, he vanished. Also, Nian couldn't find him even if he wanted to. Suddenly, space shuddered and a figure appeared within the tomb. It was a murderous-looking Enpuda. This scheme that he had plotted carefully for so long was ruined. The master of this tomb was someone he had enmity with, so he used this tomb to create this seamless trap, only for Nian to ruin things at the final moment. So, the rage he felt right now was indescribable. Only now did Nian realize that the person he had cursed as a damn fatty was actually a world king. He felt a chill. So it was this fellow who had wanted to kill Longchen. I don't know that fellow named Longchen. Hey, we're both fatties. I'm a fatty too. All fatties beneath the heavens are on the same side, so there's no need for us to kill each other, right? Why would a fatty make things hard for a fellow fatty? Am I right? Nian suddenly smiled warmly. That smile was as wretched as it could be. The immoral Taoist ruined one of my major matters back in the day, and he almost got me killed. Today, you also ruined an important plan of mine. You let Longchen escape so you can just die. Enpuda furiously smashed a palm at Nian, and with an explosive sound, Nian was blasted into powder. However, when that powder appeared, Enpuda was even more enraged. Death substitution art. That immoral ghost taught you his techniques, huh? But you can't escape. Boom. The earth exploded and a giant wave of earth spread. Enpuda's figure pierced out of the land. However, just as he shot out of the earth, a shovel smacked him in the face viciously. As a result, Enpuda's fat face was completely deformed, and he was sent flying. Nian had long since dug his way here and was waiting. His death substitution art teleported the main body a short distance away. Enpuda knew about this move and knew that Nian couldn't have run far. However, Nian also knew that Enpuda would chase him. As a result of all these circumstances, he managed to smack Enpuda with his shovel. Originally, with Enpuda's cultivation base, a sneak attack like this shouldn't have worked against him. What kind of joke was that? He was an assassin with a shockingly sharp spiritual perception. However, he was unfortunate. This technique was something that Nian had secretly learned from Long Chen, and it had the same principle as Long Chen's face-slapping art. A shovel naturally wasn't a killing tool. So, when Nian didn't use any killing intent, it was just like Long Chen's slap. It was the most successful move in Nian's arsenal since he had entered the immortal world. The shovel had smacked Enpuda's face solidly, but it didn't cause any damage other than a stinging pain on his face. Upon seeing Nian holding the shovel in one hand and a photographic jade in the other hand, Enpuda's head buzzed. The calm coolness of an assassin instantly vanished like smoke, and he charged at Nian in a wild fury. Haha, Nian, have finally made myself famous. A grand world king was smacked by my shovel. If this photographic jade spreads, the name of Nian will definitely resound throughout the 9 heavens and 10 lands. Nian laughed. He then turned and ran. After that, a pair of worn-down boots on his feet glowed, and with a single step he seemed to teleport, appearing thousands of miles away. Stop right there! Enpuda roared and shot after him. He vanished, reappearing right behind Nian. But before he could attack, Nian was already far in the distance. Even a world king like Enpuda, who was in control of a law for shortening space and had unimaginable speed, was not able to catch up to Nian and his shoddy boots. Why should I stop? Are you going to treat me to a meal? Ah, speaking of which, you know what? You look a little familiar. Wait, what the fuck? You couldn't be that Enpuda from some blood hall, right? Nian turned to look back at Enpuda as he ran. He suddenly recognized him. Nian had spent all his time underground working on his archaeology, so he didn't know that much about what was happening on the surface. He wanted to make a name for himself in the immortal world, and if he acted according to the immoral Taoist's instructions, his name would quickly resound throughout the 9 heavens and 10 lands. The facts proved that the immoral Taoist was indeed immoral. But he never lied. After inheriting the mantle of the immoral Taoist, Nian had become a scourge on the immortal world. Countless people cried out for his death, so he already had quite some fame. Nian always worked hard. In the mortal world, it could be said that he had completely lost to Long Chen. But in the immortal world, he swore to definitely be more famous than Long Chen. So, he was specifically picking out the ancient tombs of supreme experts from the ancient era. He was constantly improving himself and had reached the 3rd heaven stage of the Divine Lord realm. He was definitely working hard. Regretfully, through the spatial channel he was unable to tell the cultivation bases of other people. If he knew that Long Chen was only at the 7th heaven stage of 4 peak, he would definitely be overjoyed. Nian looked at Enpuda, seeing the latter so infuriated that already gave him his answer. Haha. I actually smacked the great Enpuda with my shovel. My name is definitely going to shake the heavens now. Ha! Nian was delighted. He almost started dancing. Little bastard, stand still, roared Enpuda. But Nian's boots were strange. They seemed to contain a spatial law. Even he, a grand world king, was unable to catch up to Nian. You damn fatty, call me Daddy Mo, understand? Do you believe me when I say I'll smack you with my shovel again? Nian had absolute confidence in his boots, and he didn't seem the slightest bit afraid of Enpuda. He had profited immensely today. As long as he spread the photographic jade of him smacking Enpuda with his shovel, it would definitely cause huge waves. That was Nian's greatest desire. You son of a bitch, even if you have those boots, how long can you last? Once your divine source is exhausted, I'll tear out your bones and muscles, and then refine your soul for eternity. Roared Enpuda. Teach, how long can I last? Until a damn fatty like you spits out blood. Ever since entering the immortal world, I don't know about anything else, but I have never met someone above me when it comes to fleeing other than my master. Come, your daddy Mo will see just how long you can keep up with me. Sneered Nian disdainfully. Just like that, two figures shot through the air like two shooting stars. The astral winds erupting from their figures shattered mountains and split rivers. Countless devil beasts fled in shock, with some being sent flying without even realizing what was happening. Long Chen. Seeing Long Chen be devoured by the collapsed spatial channel, Bai Shirshi's heart felt empty. The weariness of severely overdrafting her powers suddenly hit her, and she swayed. Seeing this, Bai Xiaola hastily supported his big sister. What can we do? Asked Bai Xiaola, looking at Qin Feng. Boss should be alright. We have to return first. With the sect maintaining divine stone, we don't have to be afraid of anyone. Long Chen had entrusted the divine stone to Qin Feng and told him how to use it. Even a heaven-tier immortal king could be slain with it, which was why Long Chen dared to bring them here despite knowing that it was a trap. The world had returned to normal. The channel was gone, as was the barrier. Having no idea where Long Chen had gone, they could only return to the academy and report things to the main academy. However, with Qin Feng and Qi Yu's understanding of Long Chen, they didn't believe that the spatial channel's destruction would kill Long Chen. The most likely possibility was that he was brought somewhere else between this place and where Enpuda had tried to bring him. Within the darkness, endless fragments were flying. Long Chen was sucked into the chaotic flow of space. Luckily, this wasn't Long Chen's first time falling into the chaotic flow of space. Now, he had the demon moon furnace above him, and he used his bone saber to knock away spatial blades. He could only rely on his sense of danger for this, as these spatial blades were invisible. They were like rocks within a turbulent current, possessing immense power. After blocking dozens of those spatial blades, there was a rice-sized nick in the saber. This bone saber was incomparably tough and shockingly sharp. It was able to clash directly with king items. But it was still damaged by these spatial blades. As for the demon moon furnace, it was helping Long Chen block the majority of the attacks. However, Long Chen could clearly sense Linger's energy being rapidly depleted. If this continued, it wouldn't be long before he was crushed by this chaotic flow. He couldn't see the slightest light nor a glimmer of hope within this endless darkness. It was like he had fallen into an endless cycle of death. However, for some reason, even within this darkness, he didn't feel much panic. Instead, he felt a particularly peaceful feeling. It was like this darkness gave him a sense of safety. All of a sudden, Long Chen closed his right eye and slowly opened his left eye. He activated the purgatory eyes. The severely wounded eye that was still red and bloody was actually refreshed. Within this darkness, he felt a soothing, cool feeling settle over his eye. After that, it began to automatically heal. It was very comfortable. Furthermore, the dark world gradually grew clear. He started to see many runes swirling around. These runes formed an endless sea, and he saw translucent crescent blades swirling around the sea. Those were the spatial blades. Long Chen suddenly saw a giant spatial blade coming toward him, and his hair stood on end. The previous spatial blades were only a few feet long, but this one was hundreds of meters long. It seemed that it was coming right for Long Chen, so he hastily dodged to the side. The spatial blade whirled right past Long Chen. It wasn't particularly fast, but it possessed unstoppable power. A powerful suction force almost dragged Long Chen in. That thing could probably kill world kings, no? Long Chen felt a chill. That kind of power was beyond his comprehension. Most terrifying of all, it came silently and without any warning. If it hadn't been for the purgatory eyes, perhaps he would only be able to sense it right when it was about to strike him. If the slightest bit of it were to touch him, then even if he had 10,000 lives, they would all be lost here. He then looked around. The purgatory eyes were able to see far and wide. He even saw spatial blades that were thousands of miles long slowly spinning. When he saw those, he almost jumped out of his skin. This was the chaotic flow of space, the place that separated the major worlds. It was no wonder that even world kings would be crushed if they were sucked inside here. Now that he was here, he truly experienced just how terrifying the chaotic flow of space was. This was a world of death. It was only thanks to the purgatory eyes that he no longer needed to directly block the spatial blades. The main thing is, how do I get out? Long Chen was vexed. The chaotic flow of space could be considered its own world. It was endless. Was he going to be stuck here forever? Long Chen's purgatory eyes gradually recovered. As Long Chen was dragged along by the wild currents, he dodged the larger spatial blades. He was safe for now. However, he didn't know where this current was bringing him, nor did he know how to get out. All he could do was keep an eye on the surroundings. Boom. After an unknown amount of time, a giant vortex appeared not too far from him, and the chaotic flow of space exploded. From that collapsed space, he saw two huge monsters. They were spitting out divine light from their mouths, piercing the void. Feeling delighted, Long Chen charged in that direction. In a clash between experts, the barrier between worlds could be broken. That was the best chance to escape the chaotic flow of space. A huge hole had been blasted into space, so Long Chen was charging toward it. He saw what was on the other side. Just as he was getting close to the giant hole and preparing to flee before it closed, he suddenly paused. He saw countless mountain-sized figures devouring the starry sky. The stars were exploding one by one. Even within the chaotic flow of space, he could sense that incomparable power. What is this? Long Chen was horrified. These monsters were devouring an entire star field. Furthermore, there were specks of light appearing from the depths of the star field. Long Chen could then vaguely see some humanoid life forms appear. However, the hole he was looking through seemed to be at the heart of that pack of monsters. If he went out, he would be directly crushed by those terrifying shockwaves. Hence, he could only watch as the hole slowly closed. His heart pounded. He had never seen anything so terrifying. Just what level had those monsters reached? Seeing an opportunity slip by because he didn't dare to grasp it vexed Long Chen. But there was no way around it. If he went out in that kind of situation, he would definitely die. At the same time as he was vexed, he gained an understanding of what was called terrifying power. He still knew too little about the 9 heavens and 10 lands. Originally, he had thought that he was already quite strong. But when he saw those stars being crushed, that newfound confidence shattered. The shattered void then healed, causing the chaotic flow of space to return to its normal appearance. In this place, time seemed to stretch on eternally. The calmness was rather frightening. Long Chen patiently waited. He couldn't sense the flow of time here. Eventually, at some point, his purgatory eyes were fully healed. Boom. Suddenly, space shuddered and exploded, startling Long Chen. Before he could even get a look, a powerful suction force dragged him out of the chaotic flow of space. Boom. The void exploded, and Long Chen was dragged out of the chaotic flow of space by some power from the outer world. Long Chen then felt a terrifying pressure that almost crushed him. Before he could even get a clear look at what was going on, he shot out like a meteor. After that, he blasted through fragments of space-time and crashed into the ground. A giant hole was smashed into the ground. Long Chen saw stars revolving in his head and was almost crushed by the impact. Kill! Furious roars shook the land and countless experts were roaring. Only now did Long Chen realize that he was on an immense battlefield. He saw countless life forms with black and red armor fighting. Corpses littered the ground. Smelling the air, Long Chen was startled. This is the aura of the Netherworld. And these life forms look similar to the human race, but they don't have any immortal chi. Instead, it's nether chi. Long Chen climbed up a mountain. Looking far and wide, he saw a giant black city in the distance. The black city had a barrier of divine light around it and a towering castle inside. Moreover, a multicolored ball of light at the top of the castle was like a strange eye overlooking this world. The eye glowed. It seemed to be the core of the castle, but it was different from the cores of the immortal world's formation. This core was actually exposed. The black city had countless life forms wearing black armor pouring out of it. It seemed that they were defending, and the life forms in red armor were attacking. In the distance, spatial cracks were appearing. Sharp blades cut through the void, as if wanting to cut apart heaven and earth. That was a battle of peak experts. Seeing those huge cracks, Long Chen understood that it was their fight that had shattered space and allowed him to escape. However, that distant battlefield was still twisting violently, with runes constantly exploding. He was unable to see who was fighting. All of a sudden, Long Chen felt a gust of wind. A life form in red armor had noticed him and was attacking. That was a divine lord, but he was instantly killed by a slap. After a soul search, Long Chen learned that these red armor life forms were attacking the city. But this little grunt had no idea who the leader was or who the real target was. An idea then popped into Long Chen's head. He took off that person's armor and put it on. Their figures weren't that different, so it was enough for him to muddle in amongst them. Long Chen then grabbed his spear, which felt cold in his hand. The materials were very different from the weapons of the immortal world. Kill them all. There's no need to fear. Wearing the red armor, Long Chen instantly began to shout. Having come to the Netherworld before, he also knew the language here. However, once he shouted, he saw that no one listened to his orders. Instead, he drew a late-stage Divine Lord's anger. What are you shouting for? Get going. The city gates will fall soon. If you dare to be lazy, I'll kill you. The armor that they were wearing had ranks, and everyone could tell a person's status just from their armor. Long Chen had simply been unaware. Long Chen directly smashed that person with his spear. Fuck, you dare to howl at your boss Long San? Have you not died before? The other life forms around jumped in shock. A subordinate had actually attacked a superior? That was a major criminal charge. What are you looking at? I'm one of your disguised generals. I was put here to keep an eye on all of you. Anyone who slacks off will be personally killed by me. Do you know who stands behind me? Shouted Long Chen. Those divine lords were shocked by Long Chen. His realm was clearly lower than theirs, but he could crush a late-stage divine lord. What are you looking at? Charge. Long Chen waved his spear. Those people that were originally following the person that Long Chen had crushed just now could only follow him. Long Chen led hundreds of them in an assault, and they got closer to the city walls. Long Chen wanted to see what was going on. It seemed that the city defenses had been raised to their peak, and the attackers were piling up their lives to drown the city. That meant the city was in imminent danger. Seeing that the city was about to be broken into, Long Chen's old disease popped up again. He wanted to see if he could dredge up any benefits. After coming empty-handed, he couldn't leave with nothing. That wasn't his style. Are you blind? Don't randomly run around. The left flank is the weakest. Attack the left flank. Long Chen led his group straight toward the city gates, only for an immortal king to bark orders at them. What do you know? The weak left flank is to bait us. The frontal gate is our real goal. Long Chen ignored him. Who cared if it was weak? Entering through the gates was the fastest path. Otherwise, when the city was broken into, he would be stuck on the edges. Wouldn't the good stuff be taken by others before he could get there? You're not listening to orders? The immortal king furiously reached toward Long Chen. Seeing this, Long Chen snorted and unleashed a punch. As a result, that mortal tier immortal king screamed. His arm was destroyed. Grabbing his neck, Long Chen lifted him up like a chicken. He shouted, Master Ta Ming has ordered me to oversee the battle. I am in charge of secretly controlling the tempo of the attack. You fools have wasted so many warriors for nothing without taking the city. You're all trash. Master Ta Ming is already very dissatisfied. I am ordered to take down the city gates within an incense stick's worth of time. Otherwise, all of you will die. If you don't want to die, then you better listen to my orders. If you want to die, just nod and I'll send you on your way. On the way here, he had heard quite a few people shouting the name of Tua Ming, which was why he used this name to intimidate them. That immortal king's head was buzzing from Long Chen's words. He was terrified as he was incredibly weak in front of Long Chen. He felt like Long Chen might even have the power of an Earth-tier immortal king. Senior, please spare my life. We'll listen to you. That person shuddered, finally believing that Long Chen was Tua Ming's trusted subordinate. Otherwise, with Long Chen's power, there was no way he would be wearing the armor of a normal grunt. Summon our people. Smash into the gate, shouted Long Chen. He then released him, and that person immediately started gathering people. Boom. Just then an explosion shook the heavens. Two figures came out of that battlefield of twisting space. When Long Chen saw one of them, he almost cried out. No way! Two people were fighting in that battle between supreme experts. One was a large man in red armor. He wore a sinisterly blood-colored helmet. The other was a peerlessly beautiful woman in a black dress. She was so beautiful that she didn't have a single flaw. Even every hair of her eyebrows was perfectly symmetrical. Wielding her bone sword, she was noble yet cold, beautiful yet dangerous. Her eyes were like sapphires, containing a deep light that could draw people's souls inside. Leng Yueyan. Long Chen was shocked to see the figure that had appeared in his dreams countless times. Leng Yueyan was definitely the most special of Long Chen's women. He loved her but was also a bit afraid of her. It was like her love had poison in it, poison that could not be extracted. Leng Yueyan, your city is going to fall soon. Even if I have to use my soldiers' lives to slowly climb on top, I will still crush you. Once your city is broken, let's see how you will protect Ming Zhongyue. The two of you are one. Now that she is making her breakthrough to Nether King, your power is unstable. You are definitely dead today, said the armored man while laughing. His red armor was covered in teeth and scales. His helmet covered his face, and his voice was rough and unpleasant to listen to. If you want my life, it'll be up to your ability, snorted Leng Yueyan. She was still as icily aloof as before. Even in front of death, she didn't feel the slightest fear. Long Chen was shocked. At this moment, he sensed that Leng Yueyan was already an immortal king. However, in the Netherworld, they weren't called immortal kings but Nether kings. At the same time, he realized that this Tua Ming was quite sinister. He actually chose to launch his attack while Ming Zhongyue was trying to break through. Furthermore, it seemed that he was aware that Leng Yueyan and Ming Zhongyue were once one. So when Ming Zhongyue made her breakthrough, she had to borrow Leng Yueyan's power. As for Leng Yueyan, her aura seemed like she had just broken through to the immortal king realm. Her realm was unstable. Furthermore, a majority of her power was being used by Ming Zhongyue. Tua Ming truly chose the right time to attack. The battle had already progressed to this point. Clearly, Ming Zhongyue could not stop now. She either succeeded or failed. If she failed, she would die along with Leng Yueyan. Thus, the current Leng Yueyan only had one option, and that was to risk her life. Leng Yueyan was as beautiful as ever, but her crystalline mouth now had a trace of redness. That was her blood. Her stubbornness was aggrieving. Let's see just how long you can last. Once the formation is broken, you're definitely dead. Tua Ming snorted and smashed his meteor hammer toward her. To face it, Leng Yueyan's bone sword swung out. The two began to fight again and space twisted once more. Their immense power tore apart space, making it impossible for the others to see their figures. It was only possible to see the sky constantly collapsing as if the end of the world had come. That Tua Ming should be a heaven-tier immortal king, but Leng Yueyan has just broken through. She's naturally at a disadvantage. Her aura is already starting to drop, while Tua Ming is still at full power. She can't last much longer. Long Chen was worried. Their battle wasn't something that he could interfere with at his current cultivation base. He would only cause trouble for her. The most worrying thing was that Tua Ming had far too many people. They outnumbered Leng Yueyan's side by over 10 times. The formation would probably be broken even before Leng Yueyan was defeated. Leng Yueyan was so suppressed. The reason that she was still able to fight back was definitely connected to this city. If the city was broken into, everything would be over. What are you standing around like this for? Hurry up and attack. Just then, a furious roar rang out. An Earth-Tier Immortal King shouted at Long Chen and his troop. The Immortal King that Long Chen had intimidated was actually this Immortal King's subordinate. Long Chen now had a group of experts just blindly following his orders. However, Long Chen was stunned by Leng Yueyan and stopped moving. As they didn't dare to make any rash movements, they also stopped. This senior ordered us to listen to his directions, said the Immortal King who had been struck by Long Chen. He immediately cleared himself of wrongdoing and blamed Long Chen. That Earth-Tier Immortal King was enraged. Seeing that Long Chen was only a four-peak brat, he felt that his subordinate had gone stupid. He called this brat senior? The Earth-Tier Immortal King shouted, "Brat, you dash!" Just as he shouted again, Long Chen slapped him in the face. This Earth-Tier Immortal King was a general and so he didn't enter the battle personally. As a result, since he wasn't in his combat-ready state, he was sent flying, hacking up blood and teeth. This one slap stunned everyone on the battlefield, especially Tuo Ming's people. They stared in shock at Long Chen, and the pace of the battle slowed down. Those experts in red armor were dumbfounded. Before they could recover from their shock, Long Chen pointed at the Earth-Tier Immortal King and cursed, "Useless thing, you haven't managed to break into the city after all this time. Do we need trash like you? Just kill yourself. Stop embarrassing yourself here. If Master relied on trash like you to achieve anything, it would be too late for anything. All of you scram. I'm going to show you what true power is, you trash. I'll show you what the expression blasting through rotting wood is." Long Chen flew into the air. After that, a flame lotus appeared in his hand, and a sacred chanting filled the air. As the scripture rang out, the wind and clouds changed color. The world was dyed red. Countless flame runes filled this place and surged toward Long Chen's flame lotus. As for the Earth-Tier Immortal King, just as he was preparing to kill Long Chen, he was stunned by this scene. When did Master raise such a terrifying expert? That Earth-Tier Immortal King felt chills when he sensed that terrifying pressure. Other than Tuo Ming himself, he had never seen anyone capable of unleashing such power. The flames rose. The flame lotus filled the world with its light, growing bigger and bigger. The bigger it grew, the greater its power. Tuo Ming's subordinates hastily retreated when they saw this. Even the Earth-Tier Immortal King was terrified by that huge flame lotus. The power contained within this one move was astonishing. When the flame lotus reached a certain size, black threads appeared. Those weren't actually threads but fine spatial cracks. Even space was unable to endure this power. But the Nirvana scripture still works in the Netherworld. Long Chen smiled sinisterly. He suddenly turned toward the red-armored army that was staring in shock and anticipation. Tuo Ming's subordinates were quite obedient. Following Long Chen's orders, they stopped attacking the barrier. They knew that once Long Chen's attack fell, the barrier would definitely crumble. An army of millions retreated and was now gathered together, afraid of being affected by Long Chen's attack. They were just waiting for the barrier to be broken and they would charge forward. As for the experts in black armor, seeing the giant lotus that filled the heavens, they despaired. There was no way that the formation could block it. Leng Yueyan was fighting a bloody battle with Tuo Ming, so she had no time to consider other things. She was doing her absolute best to stall for time. Ming Tsangyue was only a bit off from breaking through. She was gambling with Tuo Ming right now. Either she and Ming Tsangyue died together, or Ming Tsangyue would break through before the city was broken into, and they could instantly reverse the tides. In a battle like this, all her attention had to be on her opponent. However, when she heard the Nirvana scripture, she faltered, practically not daring to believe her ears. The distraction almost caused her to be seriously injured. As for Tuo Ming, he was startled and stopped pressing the attack. He then looked at Long Chen. Seeing that giant flame lotus as well as his sinister smile, his expression changed. He could see that Long Chen's target was not the barrier but his subordinates. His figure swayed, But just as he moved, Lin Yueyan's bone sword hacked down. She unleashed consecutive blows, forcing him back in a hurry. Originally, the two were somewhat evenly matched. But since Leng Yueyan knew that Long Chen had come to help, she definitely wouldn't let Tuo Ming pass. She immediately started launching risky attacks. "Kill him! He's a traitor!" shouted Tuo Ming after failing to break free of her blockade several times. "You're the spy! All of you are spies!" Long Chen suddenly sent the flame Lotus smashing toward the dumbfounded red-armored army. Tuo Ming's warning came too late. By the time those people reacted, the World Extermination flame Lotus had fallen right into their midst. It exploded right in the middle of them. Boom! The Lotus had 9 petals and 81 star-like flame spheres on the petals. They all exploded at the same time, and a wave of fire enveloped the Red Army. A giant mushroom cloud exploded. There was no flying sand or rubble. The terrifying heat simply incinerated everything. A sea of lava appeared on the ground, and millions of experts were turned to ash after this attack. However, 2 wretched figures suddenly crawled out of the sea of lava. Both of them were badly charred and were no longer even human-shaped. They were alive, but with only half their lives. "You dare to come out? Do you think your boss Long San is a vegetarian?" These 2 were Earth-tier immortal kings. Relying on their immense power, they managed to just barely keep their lives. But as soon as they appeared, Long Chen shot toward them, slashing them with his saber 1 blow each, cutting them like radishes. The entire army was now annihilated. Even mighty Earth-tier immortal kings were reduced to powerless existences and killed just like that. The experts inside the city were stunned. "Who are you?" Tuo Ming roared furiously. He was blocked by Leng Yueyan and unable to get back. So, he could only watch as the army that he had bitterly raised was destroyed. He was infuriated. "I am who I am, Boss Long San. I also have another status. I am the husband of that peerlessly beautiful woman opposing you." Long Chen looked down arrogantly at Tuo Ming. Just then, a majestic aura soared out of the city. Tuo Ming furiously roared, "You dare to ruin this! Just wait, I won't let any of you off." Tuo Ming then stamped on the air and shot away like a bolt of lightning. After that, Leng Yueyan appeared in front of Long Chen. Her beautiful face was frosty. However, there was a burning light in her eyes that was so hot it seemed as if it could melt someone. Long Chen smiled. "Long time no see dash." A sharp pain pierced Long Chen's shoulder. Leng Yueyan had actually stabbed him. Long Chen was shocked and enraged, but before he could do anything, Leng Yueyan grabbed his neck with her other hand and kissed him tightly. Although it was incredibly painful when the bone sword stabbed into his body, it very quickly felt as if Long Chen was immersed in sunlight. The bone blade had a magical energy that made him grow more accustomed to this world. He was no longer expelled by it. Long Chen realized that Leng Yueyan was using her divine energy to get him accustomed to the laws of the Netherworld. He relaxed. Just as he prepared to enjoy Leng Yueyan's kiss, she pulled away. "I should stab you a few more times. You actually resisted." Leng Yueyan looked at Long Chen with what seemed to be delight and anger. Long Chen felt a chill, and a bad feeling rose in his heart. The fiery passion from seeing Leng Yueyan dimmed. This woman was truly fickle. It was nothing more than a bodily reaction. Instinct. Long Chen helplessly explained, only for Leng Yueyan to tightly hug him. "Fool, it's because I hate you that I make things hard on you," muttered Leng Yueyan as she leaned her head against his chest. "Hate me?" Long Chen tightly held Leng Yueyan. Smelling her specific fragrance, he didn't know how he had offended her. "Because of you, we've been worried sick every single day. Tell me, don't you think that I should hate you?" said Leng Yueyan. Long Chen's heart warmed. In the final battle of the Martial Heaven continent, Leng Yueyan and Ming Zongyue had come to help them from across worlds. However, at that time, Long Chen was in the middle of making a breakthrough. By the time he woke up, Leng Yueyan and Ming Zongyue had exhausted all their energy due to being rejected by the laws of the Martial Heaven continent and had been forced to return to the Netherworld. The 2 of them were not aware of what happened afterward. Furthermore, at that time, the Martial Heaven continent already seemed doomed. They had no idea whether or not Long Chen had survived, so they had been constantly worried about him. Long Chen tightly held her, softly saying, "You should hate me. I made you worry." If the positions were switched, and he knew Leng Yueyan and Ming Zongyue were in trouble while he was suddenly sent into a different world from them, he would definitely be driven mad. He could understand that hate. Let alone being stabbed once, even being turned into a pincushion would be acceptable if he could relieve her pain. "You know how to talk at least. At that time, I swore that I would stab you for every day you made me wait. But since you understand, I'll settle for just once. However, as for whether Zongyue will settle for that, it'll be up to your own fortune." Leng Yueyan looked at Long Chen and smiled. It was like a flower blooming. But Long Chen's heart sank. He had no idea how Ming Zongyue would greet him. Just as Long Chen was worried about the possibilities, Leng Yueyan held his hand and slowly walked into the ancient city with him. The barrier opened and Leng Yueyan brought Long Chen into the city. The black-armored experts knelt toward her, filled with reverence. Leng Yueyan was a supreme existence in their eyes. Even inside the city, there were piles of corpses. Some of the buildings had been destroyed and the formation was on the verge of breaking, but fortunately, Long Chen had turned things around. After kneeling at Leng Yueyan, these experts got to work. They cleaned up the battlefield, repairing the formation and recuperating from their wounds. As for Leng Yueyan herself, she seemed to be indifferent to all of this. She didn't say a single word and just brought Long Chen to the tallest building in the ancient city, the castle. "Did you miss me?" Leng Yueyan suddenly spoke. "I missed you. I missed you a lot. I saw you in my dreams countless times, but every time I woke up from those dreams, I felt miserable." Long Chen nodded. This was true. He had seen her in more than one dream and always felt the same kind of disappointment when he woke up. It wasn't just her. He also saw Meng Qi, Chu Yao, Tang Wana, Yu Zhiqiu, and the others in his dreams. He saw them and the Dragon Blood warriors drinking and laughing together. However, sometimes it was good dreams, and sometimes it was nightmares that woke him up in a startled terror. He didn't know what exactly he felt inside. Seeing that faint bitterness in his eyes, Leng Yueyan squeezed his hand. A rare warmth appeared on her face. "Everything will get better. We're working hard on cultivation so that we can help you one day." This faint warmth on her face made Long Chen's heart swell. It was like someone gave him a warm blanket in winter. That warmth clothed him in confidence and courage so that he could face countless dangers and enemies. The two of them entered the castle. Many of the ruins of the castle were already dim. It was most likely the core of the city, and today's battle had exhausted a great deal of its energy. At the very peak, the formation activated, and they were brought to Ming Zongyue. She appeared identical to Leng Yueyan. She was seated lotus-style on the ground, divine light flowing around her, making her appear sacred and holy. Didn't she already advance to Immortal King? Why is her aura so unstable? Asked Long Chen worriedly. Had a problem occurred with the breakthrough? We were in a crisis just now, so she had no choice but to quickly make her breakthrough. After advancing and scaring off Tua Ming, now that we're safe, she has to restabilize her cultivation base. The reckless advancement caused some side effects that must be corrected, or her foundation will be shaken, said Leng Yueyan. Long Chen nodded. Perhaps in order to advance faster, Ming Zongyue had used some sort of secret art. Such a thing would definitely leave flaws that would affect future advancements. Since she had just advanced, she still had time to fix those flaws. She could stabilize her realm and reduce the damage to the lowest possible amount. If she was instead forced to fight after such a breakthrough, then she wouldn't have this chance. It would be difficult to ever recover from such a thing, and her future cultivation would be severely impacted. Leng Yueyan examined Ming Zongyue. She looked closely at the runes around her and then brought Long Chen away. They arrived at the sun room of the castle. From here, they could overlook the entire city. Countless experts were working to repair the city. Looking at those busy figures, Long Chen said, "Will Zongyue be all right?" "She'll be fine. It's a good thing that you came when you did. Her realm has not fully stabilized, so there is a chance to correct it. Speaking of which, how did you even end up coming here?" asked Leng Yueyan. The answer was a long story. Sitting down and holding her hand, Long Chen narrated what had happened, starting with the Battle of the Martial Heaven Continent. He spent hours telling her everything. Leng Yueyan smiled. Her beautiful face was like a flower blooming. She was very happy with Long Chen's storytelling. She could hear the confidence he had in her and that he needed her. Long Chen never told others about the bitterness in his heart. But in front of Leng Yueyan, he could set down his burdens and speak freely. It was like Leng Yueyan was a fierce and powerful big sister. Although a bit violent, she still gave him an indescribable sense of security. There was no need for him to fake anything. There was no need for him to force himself up. He could freely tell her what he had gone through, and that was precisely why she smiled. This storytelling was a kind of acknowledgement. Perhaps amongst all of Long Chen's beauties, only she was able to handle this. The reason why he didn't need to hold anything back was because she was strong enough. Leng Yueyan liked that kind of acknowledgement. Don't just listen to me talk. What about you too? How did you end up in a life-and-death battle against Tuo Ming? Asked Long Chen. There's nothing to tell. We were unable to help you on the Martial Heaven continent due to being on different planes. If we were to forcibly create a spatial channel connecting the two, the laws of the Netherworld would instantly destroy the Martial Heaven continent. We could only hope that you wouldn't die, somehow breaking free of the bindings of that plane and ascending to the immortal world. In any case, we sped up our cultivation and began expanding our territory. Through Leng Yueyan's explanation, Long Chen learned that the laws of cultivation in the Netherworld were different from the immortal world. The Netherworld also had countless races, but there was a specific Nethergod race that could be considered the Emperor race of the Netherworld. They were born with the laws of the Netherworld flowing within their bodies. That was what allowed them to be in charge of the 6 Daos of reincarnation. Leng Yueyan and Ming Tsongyue belonged to this innate Emperor race, which was why when they were born, they were already a Nethergod. Their parents were the laws of this Netherworld. The Netherworld's so-called 6 Daos of reincarnation were the laws that maintained the 9 heavens and 10 lands. For example, when Long Chen was attacking the Nether Passage realm and entered the gates of Hell Trial in the Netherworld, that was one of the laws of the 6 Daos of reincarnation. The one in charge of keeping watch and protecting these laws was Ming Tsongyue. This passage was something related to the secrets of the 9 heavens and 10 lands. There were countless experts maintaining these laws. Ming Tsongyue was in charge of merely one minuscule portion, and it just so happened that the Martial Heaven continent was included in that portion. That was why her clone was sent into the Martial Heaven continent, to sever any goodness left in her. As a result, she ended up producing Leng Yueyan. Eventually, due to Long Chen, the two of them became 2 separate existences, but also one whole. As Nether Gods, the more laws of the Netherworld that they could control, the faster their cultivation, and the greater the karmic luck supporting them. In order to get stronger, they began to expand their territory. They gradually grew stronger, but in the process, they also faced endless dangers. Just like the immortal world, the Netherworld was a world where the weak were devoured by the strong. Naturally, their sudden rise would draw the attention of other experts, and they would bare their bloodthirsty fangs at them. In the Netherworld, there were 2 methods to expand one's territory. One was expanding into wild areas that were abandoned by others. The laws in those areas were muddled, and taking over such an area and cleaning up those laws took a great deal of time. Moreover, restoring the laws required one's core energy. The other method was far more simple and more violent. That was to directly take the territory of another. By killing the master of a region, it would naturally become your region once you placed your mark on it. As long as you had power, this was the fastest method. Ming Tsongyue also wanted to use this method to strengthen herself, but she found that she was unable to make herself attack the ones surrounding her. Back then, she felt that it was the interference of the good in her heart. Thus, she expelled that goodness, sending it to the Martial Heaven continent so it would be dyed black by the evil of humanity. After that, she would take it back. At that time, her heart would be clear, and she could do anything she wanted without having any misgivings or inner conflict. But she failed. Her goodness had transformed into Leng Yueyan. The two of them influenced each other but remained separate. Ming Songyue's original plan was to use any means necessary to get stronger, but Leng Yueyan refused. Her principle was that if someone didn't offend her, she wouldn't offend them. If someone did offend her, she would rip them out by the roots. However, she refused to take the initiative in bullying someone. That was her pride that she refused to change. Feeling helpless, Ming Songyue agreed to search for wild areas with Leng Yueyan, and the two of them were surprisingly lucky. They actually found a world that automatically repaired its laws as soon as they took control over it, delighting them. As a result of taking over this world, their cultivation bases rapidly soared. Their subordinates also grew stronger after they took over this territory. However, this also drew the attention of others. Tua Ming was one of them, and he was very crafty. He seemed to have a method to watch over things here and actually launched an attack just as Ming Songyue was attacking the Immortal King realm. If Long Chen hadn't come in time, he would have succeeded. Since Tua Ming was not fighting in his territory, even as a Heaven-tier Immortal King, he was blocked by Leng Yueyan who had just advanced to the Immortal King realm. Tua Ming failed this time. Will he spread this news far and wide to draw over other attackers? Asked Long Chen. Most likely no. If this news is leaked, we would be destroyed by others, and he wouldn't gain anything. He has paid so much. He came out with almost all his subordinates and lost them. If he can't gain anything, he won't do such a thing, said Leng Yueyan. Long Chen nodded. That was reasonable, but he then frowned. On his own, he definitely won't dare to return. If he goes against the two of you, he might lose his life. But he is definitely unwilling to give up like this. If everyone was to learn of what was happening here, they would definitely come to attack you. Then he won't gain anything. If I were him, I would definitely think of some way to quickly gather 2 or 3 helpers to devour this place, and then split the profits. Furthermore, they will come quickly. Too late, and this piece of meat will be devoured by others. In other words, we have to hurry and prepare, said Long Chen gravely. There's nothing for us to prepare. In at most 3 days, Tua Ming will return. Even if he only brings another Heaven-tier Nether King, Leng Yueyan and I won't be able to endure. Their subordinates only have to break the Nether God Tower, and this world will once more become a masterless area. If we don't control this territory, we won't be supported by a continuous stream of its energy, and we won't be able to fight them. I'm simply waiting for Songyue to stabilize her realm before leaving. We'll go back to our old home and think of something else, said Leng Yueyan. She bit her lip, a bit unwilling to leave. However, there was no way around it. This was the wisest choice. If they did this, at least they would keep their lives and their foundation. However, they would end up back at the starting point. All their efforts during this time would be wasted. Furthermore, having lost this territory, without the support of the laws that had allowed them to reach their current realm, there was no way that they could maintain their current realms. In at most a year, their realms would fall back down. But there was no way around it. Don't be in a rush. There will definitely be a way. Long Chen comforted Leng Yueyan as his head rapidly worked. After working so hard for a territory just for it to be taken away, let alone Leng Yueyan and Ming Songyue, even Long Chen himself was unable to accept it. He could only accept him taking from others and not others taking from him, and especially not taking from his women's things. Yuan, take a look at this. Long Chen took out some sharp arrows with rusty arrowheads. When Leng Yueyan touched them, her expression changed. The aura of the ghost Dao. How did you obtain this thing? I took the rust off of a ghost ship and used it to make some arrowheads, said Long Chen. Long Chen hadn't mentioned the ghost ship before because Bai Shishir was part of it. He wasn't such a fool to talk about other women in front of Leng Yueyan. He wasn't that tired of living yet. A ghost ship? Tell me, what did you see? Leng Yueyan's expression became grave. Long Chen obediently explained what he had seen. But he didn't mention Bai Shishir. Corpse spirits from ancient times? It's no wonder that the number of life forms in the Netherworld has dropped slightly year after year. So it was done by the ghost Dao, Leng Yueyan muttered to herself. But she suddenly shut her mouth. Ignore the rest. Is this thing useful? Asked Long Chen. It is. This rust contains the power of time. Furthermore, it is the kind of time power that doesn't exist in the Netherworld. Even an Earth-tier Nether King would fall after being shot by one arrow. However, what is more shocking is the shaft. The wood contains a terrifying amount of wood life energy. This kind of wood possesses an immense killing power to the Netherworld's life forms because the Netherworld's aura contains death chi that is countered by this life energy. If shot by this kind of tough yet flexible wooden arrow, their nether chi would be thrown into chaos and they would temporarily lose their combat power, said Leng Yueyan. So even just these arrow shafts are useful? Long Chen was pleasantly surprised. Do you have a lot of them? Leng Yueyan's eyes brightened. I have as many as you want. Long Chen took out a piece of wood that was 3 meters thick and many miles long. Leng Yueyan received it emotionally. The life energy contained within this piece of wood was astonishing. It gave her hope. Leng Yueyan quickly gave orders. 2 Earth-tier immortal kings carefully brought away the wood. Turn this divine wood into arrows as quickly as possible. Remember, don't even waste an inch. There's no need to worry about waste. We only seek a fast production rate. I have as much of this divine wood as you need. Make them as fast as possible. Long Chen waved his hand, taking out dozens of wooden pillars. Even Leng Yueyan, with all her calm indifference, covered her mouth in shock. Atop a soft bed, Long Chen caressed Leng Yueyan's silky skin. Looking at her beautiful face, which was just like a jade statue, Long Chen felt like he was the most blessed man alive. She was beautiful, arrogant, and could not be blasphemed. But she was still in his embrace. After showing their love for each other, he slept better than he ever had. Even after waking up, he stayed still, afraid of startling awake this sleeping beauty, as if he might wake up from a dream. However, when he looked at his body, which was covered in sharp teeth marks that still vaguely hurt, he knew that he wasn't dreaming. It's only been a few hours. Are you not going to sleep longer? Leng Yueyan smiled beautifully, but she didn't open her eyes. She continued to rest her head on Long Chen's arm. I feel like sleeping is a waste of time. I'd rather spend my time looking at you. Long Chen smiled. If you keep looking at me, aren't you afraid that you'll get tired of it eventually? Leng Yueyan opened her eyes. Her sapphire eyes were like stars in the night sky, pure yet also bewitching, beautiful yet dangerous. How could that happen? I'll never get tired of you, said Long Chen. Why don't you have the auras of others on you? Have you not done this with them after all this time? Asked Leng Yueyan curiously. Isn't it because there's never been a chance? Said Long Chen somewhat helplessly. When it came to doing intimate acts, he had only done it with Leng Yueyan and Ming Songyue. However, those 2 times on the martial heaven continent could barely be counted, because those were forced. As for during his nether passage breakthrough, he had only entered the netherworld in Yuan's spirit form. It could be said that in terms of truly doing this intimate act, this was the first. This time, it was carried out mutually. It was a merger of spirits and bodies. These sisters of mine really are adorably foolish. I couldn't do the same as them. My man is mine. Leng Yueyan stood and her beautiful curves appeared before Long Chen in their entirety, causing his heart to pound wildly. Leng Yueyan's attraction was truly fatal, especially in such a situation. Seeing him like that, she smiled slightly. She then raised her arms, and black runes condensed around her, forming a black dress. Her bone sword also appeared on her back. In this dress, she seemed to have returned to her cold indifference. Only then did Long Chen realize that these clothes were connected to the laws of this world. When she put on these clothes, she became the master of this world. Laws were emotionless. That was why she seemed so indifferent. It was like she had become a part of the heavenly Daos. In this state, she truly was a god, an existence that could not be blasphemed. Looking at Leng Yueyan, Long Chen suddenly smiled. That smile was rather wretched. Leng Yueyan seemed to have seen through his thoughts and said, "That thinking of yours is very dangerous. But it's not outside the realm of possibility. It's just that you must have the power to conquer me or you will forever be conquered. I feel like I can work hard at it." Long Chen smiled. Leng Yueyan was like an untamable horse. But the more that she couldn't be tamed, the more he felt an intense desire to. Long Chen put on his clothes. Holding each other's hands, they came to the top of the castle. They then saw millions of experts working hard at fletching arrows. As Leng Yueyan waved her hand, an arrow appeared in front of Long Chen. When he received it, he exclaimed, "What skill! Your people were actually able to add so many runes." Although Long Chen wasn't too familiar with this process, he saw 7 different runes on this arrow. After being with Guo Ran and Xia Chen for so long, although he didn't understand these runes, he could differentiate that these people had added explosiveness, destructiveness, silentness, and other powers to the arrow. The normal Wood Foundation Divine Tree's arrows were already naturally silent. Hence, by adding these attributes, their power greatly increased. Leng Yueyan's subordinates actually possessed such refined forging arts. Among my followers are some who come from a race specialized in archery. They only recently joined me. Due to a lack of resources, they haven't been able to show off their skill. But the Wood Foundation Divine Trees you provided made them cry from emotion. They didn't have good bows or arrows, so they had no chance to show their skills before. But now, they finally have a chance to equip themselves. Their entire race is full of divine archers, but due to offending other powers, they ended up with nowhere to go and fled in every direction. In the end, I decided that I didn't dislike them, so I permitted them to join me, becoming my followers. But even then, they had no chance to grow. Others have been looking down on them, and they've had to suffer quite a bit during this time. Now it seems that they can finally vent. "Look, that fellow is coming," said Leng Yueyan. An elder of medium build but exceptionally robust walked over. His arms were particularly thick and had natural marks on them. Long Chen was startled. Could it be that those marks were from archery? This was a natural archer? Changgong Hao greets the Divine Master and the Divine Master's consort. The elder knelt toward the two of them. Divine Master's consort? Long Chen almost coughed up blood. His expression immediately changed and Leng Yueyan couldn't help laughing. "Hey, you can call me Boss Long San, and never call me a consort again," ordered Long Chen severely. When had he become a consort? If that status became set in stone, how would he face the rest of the world? If Nian were to learn of it, would Long Chen not be laughed at for a lifetime? The elder looked at Leng Yueyan. Leng Yueyan held back her laughter and waved her hand. "Just listen to him." Changgong Hao greets Boss Long San. The elder once more kowtowed toward Long Chen. Long Chen lifted him up. "In the future, you can just do that to the Divine Master. Don't do it to me. I don't like it." "Yes, Boss Long San. Whatever you say, I will do. I was so bold as to come here because I wanted to thank you. Our Longbow race lives for archery. But by my generation, we have declined to the absolute bottom and are bullied by other races. If it wasn't for the protection of the Divine Master, my Longbow race would have been destroyed. My Longbow race will never be able to repay the Divine Master's kindness." Changgong Hao grew more and more emotional as he spoke. He managed to get out some words of gratitude as he shed tears at the same time. In the end, he took out a longbow and offered it up with both hands. "This is the wooden bow I made just now. Boss Long San, please give me pointers. How equals vast?" Long Chen received the bow. In his hand, the wood seemed to come to life, and the marks on top of the wood flowed on top of it like water. Long Chen had no idea what kind of technique Changgong Hao had used to unleash the maximum potential of the Wood Foundation Divine Tree. As for the bowstring, it was actually made with the fibers of the Wood Foundation Divine Tree's bark. Its strength exceeded Long Chen's expectations. Long Chen hadn't expected the Wood Foundation Divine Trees to have so many uses. Every part of this tree was turned into priceless treasures in the hands of the Longbow race. Moreover, the bow felt incredibly heavy in his hand. When Long Chen pulled the bowstring, the wooden marks on the bow instantly lit up. He was unable to fully draw the longbow. "Good bow." Long Chen couldn't help praising this bow. He stored up power to try drawing it again. As a result, the bow buzzed and veins popped on Long Chen's arms. It actually required 90% of his max power just to draw the bow. Furthermore, his arms were quivering. There was no way he could shoot accurately in this state. What brute power! Changgong Hao was shocked by Long Chen's physical power. For him to be able to draw the bow relying purely on brute power was beyond expectations. This bow's power might not be able to reach the level of a king item, but it's not much worse. The Longbow race's name is not only for show, praised Long Chen. A piece of wood had actually been turned into such a terrifying weapon at their hands. The world was truly large and filled with marvels. Boss Long San, try and shoot an arrow. Changgong Hao handed Long Chen an arrow. Knocking the arrow, he unleashed the full power of his divine flames. The bow instantly became like a crescent moon. The bowstring buzzed. With a light sound, the arrow vanished. Boom. Suddenly, a broken flagpole on a mound 10,000 miles away was pierced by the arrow. That flagpole had the thickness of an arm and was made of the finest metal of the Netherworld. It was incredibly tough. There were many of them on that mound. They were left behind by their enemies, and Changgong Hao had actually decided to use that place as a shooting range. What a beautiful curved arrow! Changgong Hao praised Long Chen. None of Long Chen's power had been wasted in that shot. Even amongst members of the Longbow race, those who could shoot such a perfect curved arrow were considered peak experts. Just by looking at Long Chen's palms, he knew that Long Chen wasn't an archer specialist. Hence, he couldn't help feeling admiration and shock when he saw that Long Chen was capable of shooting so accurately. He had originally just come to thank Long Chen for his divine wood, allowing them to show their power and use. Of course, he also wanted to show everyone that it was not a mistake for Leng Yueyan to take in their longbow race. The reason he had asked Long Chen to try the bow first was to show them all the quality of his craftsmanship and also his own terrifying archery arts afterward. But he hadn't expected Long Chen to also be an expert archer. Shooting that target directly wasn't difficult, but Long Chen had clearly shot in a different direction, only for the arrow to arc toward the flagpole afterward. Furthermore, not one bit of the arrow's power leaked as it flew through the air. For the arrow to pierce the flagpole without knocking it down showed the power of the bow, arrow, and archer. Even Leng Yueyan was moved. Your bow-making technique is truly admirable. The wood foundation divine trees went from trash to treasure in your hands, said Long Chen. The only regretful thing was that the runes of this longbow were from Netherworld. They were made in accordance with the Netherworld's laws, so they weren't suitable for the immortal world. Otherwise, Long Chen could have the longbow race make a few 10,000 of these amazing bows and raise an army of archers. Regretfully, there was no way for that dream to come true. But this also gave Long Chen a sense of alarm. Even the Netherworld had experts like this, so the immortal world definitely had countless amazing existences as well. He would have to be more careful in the future. Boss Long San, you're too courteous. I haven't turned trash into treasure. It was simply a treasure from the start, and I merely revised it a bit. This longbow was made by extracting the core of the divine wood. It came from the strongest part. So, every piece of wood you gave us was enough to make 9 such bows. Right now, we have 136 of them. If the longbow race uses these divine bows, we can essentially ignore the protective chi of an Earth-tier Nether King. Unless it is someone like Tu Ah Ming wearing king item armor, a single arrow can disperse a person's nether chi for at least a breath's time. That's enough for us to shoot the target full of holes, said Changgong Hao confidently. Changgong Hao took out a bow identical to the one that Long Chen held. The bow instantly bent like a crescent moon, and the marks on his arms lit up. He seemed to become one with the bow. Boom. A mountain at the very edge of their vision crumbled, and 7 mountain peaks in front of it were pierced. His power was also perfectly concentrated. His arrow had pierced a tiny smooth hole in the 7 mountain peaks before exploding on the 8th mountain. This one attack displayed his shocking control. The bow and arrow were like a part of his body. Furthermore, Long Chen also noted that the arrow had pierced through the 7 mountain peaks at different speeds. In other words, even after the arrow left the bow, it was still under his control. That was not just a question of technique, it was an innate bloodline ability. This was something others couldn't learn no matter what. Excellent! It's finally the turn of your longbow race to be the main character. When the battle starts, I'm looking forward to your display. Once you establish your merit, I will naturally reward you. Leng Yueyan was also moved. That one arrow was truly powerful. Changgong Hao was an Earth-tier Nether King, but this attack could even threaten a Heaven-tier Nether King. Divine Master, let me just say it again. If it weren't for you taking pity on us, my Longbow race would have long since been destroyed. Your favor is something that we will never forget. I didn't come for credit or to be dazzling. I simply want to show you that with these arrows, anyone who wants to touch a single hair on your head must walk over our corpses first. Changgong Hao knelt to Leng Yueyan once more, his voice firm and confident. In order to make him even more confident, Long Chen tossed out over 80 wooden pillars. Those were just the branches of the wood foundation divine trees. As long as Long Chen tossed in more corpses, they would easily regrow. Seeing so many of these wood pillars, let alone Changgong Hao, even Leng Yueyan was dumbfounded. Such a treasure was being tossed out by Long Chen like it was trash. Changgong Hao was so moved that he wanted to cry. He repeatedly thanked Long Chen. After repeated kowtows, he left with the wood. Watching as he left, Long Chen grinned. This guy was quite the character. Just as he was about to say something, a pair of hands warmly wrapped around him from behind. Even without looking back, Long Chen could sense an aura similar to Leng Yueyan's. But it possessed a gentleness that Leng Yueyan did not have. Long Chen then rubbed her hands. "Songyue, I missed you." Long Chen looked back and stared into Ming Songyue's eyes. There was a gentle and soft emotion within that cold gaze. Leng Yueyan's gaze also had warmth in it when she looked at him, but that warmth was sharp. That was the greatest difference between the two of them. Even without sensing their auras, just their eyes were enough for him to differentiate them. Leng Yueyan had left at some point, as if giving them space. Ming Songyue then gently rubbed Long Chen's gaze. She smiled sweetly. "Originally, I also hated you, but Yueyan has punished you, so I won't punish you again." Ming Songyue tightly hugged Long Chen, pressing her face against his chest and listening to his powerful heartbeats. At this point, it seemed that any spoken words would be superfluous. Long Chen brushed Ming Songyue's hair and kissed her forehead. Smelling her fragrance, he suddenly had a strange thought. He couldn't help asking, "If you and Leng Yueyan are one, and she is your good side, I feel like this seems a bit mixed." Ming Songyue giggled. "You mean she seems more evil than me? Are you not afraid that she will continue to stab you?" "I am afraid, but she definitely won't kill me. If I don't ask though, I might die from curiosity," laughed Long Chen. "Fool. How can you not know? Have you forgotten what you told me to do?" Ming Songyue scolded Long Chen with a smile. "What did I tell you to do? I actually have forgotten. Are you going to hit me for that?" Long Chen scratched his head awkwardly. He really forgot what he had said all that time ago. Ming Songyue glared at him. "Your memory is terrible. The two of us were originally two opposite extremes. I sent my good side into the martial heaven continent's corrupt path so that she would be dyed black, erasing that goodness. But because the two of us, with you," she blushed and glared at him viciously before continuing, "because of our relationship with you, we became two separate souls. Your appearance changed our fates. Just as you said, there are no absolutes in this world. There is no absolute good or absolute evil. Based on what you said, I am evil, but my heart has goodness. My goodness is all used on you, while are you saying that the bit of evil in her is all focused on me?" Long Chen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Wasn't that too much of a con? "Well, it's not entirely because of you. If she didn't torment you a bit, she would feel like she was the same as me. She wants her own special position, you know," said Ming Songyue, covering a smile. "Oh, what is that mark on your forehead?" Ming Songyue suddenly stiffened and stared in shock at Long Chen's forehead. Long Chen actually thought it was somewhere that Leng Yueyan had bitten him, and just as he was about to explain, Ming Songyue's expression changed. "This is the mark of the Ghost Dao. You have had interactions with the Ghost Dao." "I went on to a ghost ship." Long Chen was also surprised. He quickly explained what had happened with the ghost ship. Was this mark left behind by the ghost ship? Had he really become an underworld ghost seed? Yueyan, that fool, she didn't notice. "This mark is the most terrifying mark of the ghost sovereign. This is trouble. Ming Songyue's smile vanished, replaced with shock and worry. Just at this moment, Leng Yueyan returned. She came to Long Chen and carefully examined his forehead. Her expression also became grave. How can this be? How can the Ghost Sovereign have set its sights on Long Chen? Isn't that dash? Leng Yueyan suddenly shut her mouth, as if she couldn't speak of something taboo. It hasn't set its sights on Long Chen, but on his heart devil. Long Chen, do you have a heart devil? Asked Ming Songyue. Yes. Is that a problem? Admitted Long Chen. How can it not be a problem? Don't you realize that the Ghost Sovereign's mark is focused on your heart devil? The Ghost Sovereign is the master of one of the 6 Daos, the Ghost World. This mark will constantly draw out and seduce your heart devil. Once you are devoured by your heart devil, you will become a puppet of the Ghost Sovereign. Fortunately, it has been noticed in time. We don't dare to touch that mark, however, Leng Yueyan and I can temporarily seal your heart devil. That way, you will be safe for now at least. We can think of something else later, said Ming Songyue. The two of them began to form hand seals. No, no. Long Chen hastily waved his hands. What? The two of them were startled. My heart devil is another will of mine. He is me and I am him. If I use your power to seal him, he will look down on me. I believe that he will not be influenced by the Ghost Dao's mark because he is also afraid of me looking down on him, said Long Chen. If his heart devil was sealed, it would be like losing a part of his soul. Then his Dao heart would never be clear again. It wasn't worth it. Furthermore, that mysterious dragon expert had long since warned him that his dark energy could not be suppressed. The more he suppressed it, the greater it would fight back. His experience also agreed with the dragon expert's words. The more he suppressed his dark energy, the more it grew. If Long Chen allowed the two of them to seal his heart devil, when his heart devil broke free of its seal, he would definitely be doomed. Furthermore, his heart devil could be considered a case of inner turmoil. If he managed to figure out the conflict, his heart devil would also disappear. There was no need to be so nervous. As for that so-called Ghost Sovereign's mark, he wasn't afraid. He and his heart devil were a part of him. No one understood him better than himself. All right. Since he was so sure, the two of them acquiesced. Now also wasn't the right time to seal his heart devil. Doing such a thing would use up a great deal of their core energy. As a large battle was going to start soon, they couldn't be so careless. Furthermore, Long Chen was not afraid of his heart devil, nor did he dislike it or view it with hatred. He was surprisingly relaxed, to the point that Ming Songyue wouldn't have noticed Long Chen's heart devil without the Ghost Sovereign's mark. When Long Chen asked for more details about this Ghost Sovereign's mark, Ming Songyue simply shook her head and said it was a very taboo name. It would be best not to mention it in the future. The Ghost Sovereign's mark made the two of them nervous, but Long Chen seemed very relaxed. He then told them about some interesting news in the immortal world to relax them. Just as Long Chen was spouting a bunch of nonsense, the ancient city's grand formation suddenly activated. An ear-piercing alarm split the air. They're here! Leng Yueyan and Ming Songyue shot up and gazed into the distance. A spatial gate had opened there, and countless figures were pouring out of it. Following that ear-piercing alarm, all the experts inside the city entered a combat-ready state. Leng Yueyan once more activated the formation to its maximum power. It was only thanks to the formation that they could fight a heaven-tier Nether King. However, last time, Leng Yueyan's battle with Tuo Ming had ended up using quite a bit of the formation's power, and Ming Songyue had also borrowed part of the formation's power in her breakthrough. So, the formation had yet to fully recover. Watching as countless experts poured out of the spatial gate, Long Chen quickly saw Tuo Ming's figure. He was still encased in red armor, leaving only his eyes exposed. It was very easy to recognize him. There was a horned life form beside him, one that was just as muscular as him. Also, that life form had 2 huge hatchets on his back. That life form emitted an overwhelming blood chi, his pressure astonishing. He was also a heaven-tier Nether King, most likely the overlord of a region just like Tuo Ming. Their subordinates poured out along with the two of them. Based on the colors of their armor, it could be seen that Tua Ming's subordinates only occupied 20% of their joint army. The rest belonged to that other faction. While observing this army of millions and millions, Long Chen suddenly had a thought. He then checked the primal chaos space. Only now did he realize that the heavenly Dao tree that had been plucked clean was once more filled with new fruits. Long Chen felt a wave of excitement. It seemed that the heavenly Dao tree could also work on the Netherworld's lifeforms. Long Chen then saw 10 Earth-tier heavenly Dao fruit that had fully matured. He knew that they were from Tua Ming's 6 Earth-tier Nether King subordinates, as well as the 4 Earth-tier Immortal Kings of the 9 Underworld Hall. Long Chen had killed them with the sect-maintaining Divine Stone in the Heavenly Rainbow domain. That wasn't all. The 9 fruit at the very top had also grown a bit. Their runes were more concentrated, and their auras were stronger. The aura of the Heaven tier was clearer now. It seemed that the Heavenly Dao tree could only bear 9,999 fruit at once. That was its limit. No matter how many primals that Long Chen killed, their number would not increase beyond that. However, it would continue to absorb energy. Once the number reached its limit, the quality would increase. If he only killed ordinary primals or mortal-tier immortal kings, the Heavenly Dao tree would produce the most ordinary Heavenly Dao fruit that could only produce mortal-tier immortal kings. However, as he killed more and the tree absorbed more energy, the Heavenly Dao fruit would grow stronger, producing Spirit-tier, Earth-tier, and Heaven-tier fruits. If he directly killed an Earth-tier immortal king, he would instantly obtain an Earth-tier Heavenly Dao fruit. The Heavenly Dao tree could hold 9,000 mortal-tier fruit, 900 Spirit-tier fruit, 90 Earth-tier fruit, and 9 Heaven-tier fruit. Now that the 9,000 mortal-tier fruit and 900 Spirit-tier fruit had all matured, it was the Earth-tier fruit's turn. Looking very closely, Long Chen found that other than the 10 mature Earth-tier fruit, several others were also on the verge of full maturity. Previously, Long Chen had needed to use over 10 non-mature Earth-tier fruit to let Luo Changwu become an Earth-tier immortal king. But now, one fully matured fruit would do the job. Based on Long Chen's reckoning, once the mortal, spirit, and Earth-tier fruit were fully mature, all the energy that the Heavenly Dao tree absorbed would go to the Heaven-tier fruit, speeding up their maturity. Such a fruit could directly produce a Heaven-tier immortal king. Just how heaven-defying was that? Seeing this endless army, Long Chen's eyes turned blue with greed. Those weren't enemies, they were fresh Heavenly Dao fruits. Their full army was finally out and began to approach the city. Just their number of divine lords was already 10 times that of Leng Yueyan's side. The previous battle against Tua Ming had cost Leng Yueyan many of her experts, so there was a huge power disparity between the two sides now. If Tua Ming's army had not been conned and wiped out by Long Chen, then even he wouldn't have been able to change the course of the battle. In the end, the city would have been destroyed. Normally, those Earth-tier Nether Kings wouldn't allow someone to store up enough energy and unleash such an attack in battle. And without a full-power World Extermination Flame Lotus, Long Chen wouldn't have been able to do anything. He wouldn't have been able to wipe them out without their cooperation. One thing was for sure, Tua Ming wouldn't let the same thing happen this time. He wouldn't give Long Chen a chance to unleash that attack again. Leng Yueyan Mingtongyue, hand over the divine core. Otherwise, I'll destroy your city, kill your people, and make you die miserable deaths. Announced Tua Ming at the front of the army, just outside the formation's attack range. The auras of his experts fully erupted and a shocking pressure rose. They were ready to assault the city at any moment. That divine core was the key to controlling the laws of this region. With it, they would become the master of this region and receive the recognition of the Heavenly Daos. By becoming the master of a region, they gained the recognition of the Netherworld. So, only by controlling the divine core were you able to farm a region and gain all the benefits. Let's not say such big words when we're trying to have a proper conversation. To use big words in front of Boss Long San, take care not to lose your tongue. You can be arrogant, but you can't be more arrogant than me. Otherwise, I'll make you regret your words. Long Chen stood at the peak of the castle with Leng Yueyan and Ming Tsongyue behind him. You damn bastard, you ruined things for me. Now you'll make me regret it? Do you know what kind of torture you'll face if you fall into my hands? Roared Tuoming. Success was right before him. With another heaven-tier immortal king by his side, he considered things over. But an ant was actually driving him crazy with rage. Upon leaving the last time, he immediately looked for helpers. He then found one and decided to split the benefits of defeating Leng Yueyan 4060. Furthermore, he was the 40. That was because a large portion of his troops had been wiped out. Since his companion was putting in more, he had no choice but to give the former more. How could he not be infuriated? Upon seeing Long Chen, he wanted to simply crush him. Torture? Are you making me laugh? What qualifications do you have to torture me? Let me tell you the truth. This castle definitely can't be defended. But do you think that I will give this piece of meat to you? You're too naive. What do you think we spent the past 2 days here for? I'll tell you the truth. As soon as you attack, the castle will explode, detonating the power of the divine core. After that, this region will once more become masterless, and the disturbance will draw over countless powers. I'm sure you've decided how to split things amongst yourselves, but I don't believe the two of you will become the final masters of this region. Furthermore, we've long since made preparations to leave. We'll directly leave without you being able to even touch us. Who knows? Maybe your forces will be devoured by the explosion, and others will come to reap the benefits. Long Chen laughed sinisterly. He held up a small sphere of light. That was the divine core, which possessed endless power. Tuoming and the expert beside him were stunned. The reason why Tuoming was in such a rush to attack this place was precisely because he wanted to settle things before other powers were alerted. If others were to interfere, it wouldn't belong to him in the end. He had to capture it before others noticed it. Furthermore, his thoughts were instantly read by Long Chen. Long Chen seemed ready to leave them with nothing for either side. Who are you trying to scare? Even if you detonate the divine core, we have a method to quickly condense a new one. We'll take control of this place before others arrive, snorted the expert beside Tuoming. His words were tough, but that was merely a front. He didn't want Long Chen to see that they were scared. Long Chen sneered, I already told you not to say any big words. I know exactly how much power you two have. If you were really that strong, you wouldn't be in such a rush to attack us. Why don't we simply gamble instead? If you win, we will obediently offer you the divine core with both hands. How is that? What's the gamble? Asked Tuoming. He was unclear on what Long Chen was thinking, but he was afraid of Long Chen simply dragging everyone down with him. Long Chen said that they had spent 2 days getting ready to leave the destroyed castle. That sounded very logical. If he really did that, then they wouldn't be able to get anything at all. He had lost so many subordinates. If he was still unable to capture this place, he wouldn't have a good time in the future. Others might even devour his land. So, the current him could not leave here with nothing. If it weren't for the expert with dual hatchets on his back having a certain relationship with him, he wouldn't have dared to request aid from him. Otherwise, whoever he cooperated with might devour him as well. Thus, Long Chen had truly caught him in a painful position. Although Long Chen didn't know where Tuoming's territory was, he knew that this fellow viewed this area as a must-have. Tuoming had paid far too much to claim it. It's very simple. One of you will come out and have a fair fight against one of us. That will decide who will get this world. If you win, we will give you this world. This divine core will then be directly bestowed upon you, while we return to our old home, said Long Chen. And if we lose? Tuoming narrowed his eyes. If you lose, swear on your souls to never attack this place again. At the same time, leave behind half your people as slaves for us, said Long Chen indifferently. What nonsense! We are clearly in a superior position. Why would we need to gamble? Sneered the dual-wielding hatchet Nether King. Of course, you don't need to accept. We'll just crush the divine core and everyone can leave with nothing, said Long Chen completely indifferently. Don't waste words with this brat. You can tell he's a bad person with just a glance. He definitely has some scheme. Perhaps he's just stalling for time, transmitted the hatchet wielder to Tuoming. In his opinion, they had absolute power. They could crush Long Chen and the others, so they should just launch an explosive attack. Even if Long Qin detonated the divine core, with so many of them here, they would be able to reconstruct it within a few hours. Hence, this threat wasn't taken seriously by him. Tua Ming looked at Long Qin, his heart thudded. He then replied, "Better safe than sorry." After 2 days of preparation, they have definitely come up with something. If we really forcibly attack and they detonate the divine core, the destructive power will be immense. If it draws over other powers while we have yet to condense a new divine core, all our efforts will go to waste. Tu Ming was naturally more cautious because he had already lost so much. This place was very important to him. He had no choice but to be cautious. "Then what can we do?" demanded the hatchet wielder. He clearly wasn't an expert that used schemes to obtain what he wanted. Perhaps that was precisely why Tu Ming had chosen to ally with him. Placate him. Agree to gamble. I've ordered people to secretly start digging. As long as we have enough time, we can completely destabilize their formation without anyone being the wiser. With the loss of their formation, Leng Yueyan and Ming Songyue can be instantly killed. Even if we can't stop them from detonating the divine core, we can definitely collect the majority of the core's runes, which allows us to condense a new core in just 2 hours at most. Then we won't need to worry about others coming, transmitted Tu Ming. Fine, we'll do as you say. I'll step forward and you can make your arrangements. The hatchet-wielding Nether King didn't find any flaw in Tu Ming's plan, so he stepped forward. "Brackham, who are you sending from your side?" shouted the hatchet expert. Tu Ming cursed inside. Was this fellow an idiot? Just now, he had been completely against this gamble, and now he simply ran out. Wasn't that telling them that both of them had a plan? It would be strange if their enemies didn't suspect anything. "I'll take you." However, before Tu Ming could think of some way to reduce their suspicion, Ming Songyue stepped out. "Remember, don't be in a rush to defeat her," transmitted Tu Ming. Boom. However, just as he said this, the two of them clashed. Ming Songyue started off with a full-power attack and the hatchet wielder roared. His hatchets blazed with divine light as he blocked Ming Songyue's bone sword. A huge explosion caused giant spatial fluctuations. After that, both sides were blown back and the hatchet wielder almost coughed up blood. Having heard Tu Ming's instructions, he hadn't gone all out in that exchange. But Ming Songyue hadn't held back in the slightest. Just as he was swallowing down the sweet sensation rising in his throat, a silent arrow shot through his shoulder. As a result, blood exploded out of his shoulder, and his divine light armor became completely ineffective. Bastard! The sudden sneak attack caught him off guard, and sharp pain racked his shoulder. At the same time, he felt his divine chi stagnate for a moment. In that one moment of sluggishness, an ancient sword cut off his head from the rear. That head had just flown up when Ming Songyue's sword pierced it. After that, divine light exploded. A heaven-tier Nether King was slain just like that. The void then twisted and Leng Yueyan's figure slowly appeared. She was the one to cut off his head. Well done. Long Chen was filled with praise. Changgong Hao's arrow was shot at just the right time, catching that Nether King off guard and working together with Ming Songyue and Leng Yueyan. Changgong Hao was a masterful archer. He took advantage of when that Nether King was unsteady, shaken by Ming Songyue's full-power attack. Furthermore, Changgong Hao aimed for his shoulder and not his head, making it more difficult for his enemy to sense it. This arrow contained the power of time and life energy. Under the effects of both powers, that Nether King's reactions turned sluggish. Then Ming Songyue charged at him, while the true killing blow was Leng Yueyan hiding in the void. Let alone this foolish expert whose head was very simple, even if he were an expert schemer, he would still easily fall for this trap. With his companion slain, Tu Ming was shocked, enraged, and terrified. He didn't dare to believe his eyes. He looked at Long Chen and saw Leng Yueyan standing right there. Seeing him looking over, Long Chen smiled and looked at the Leng Yueyan beside him. That Leng Yueyan also smiled and suddenly transformed into lightning runes. A fake! You're quite sinister. Only then did Tu Ming realize just what kind of sinister scheme he had fallen for. Kill! Just then, in the distance, hundreds of mountains exploded. Countless black-armored experts appeared, unleashing a rain of arrows. At this moment, Tuo Ming realized that he had fallen completely for Long Chen's scheme. When Long Chen invited them to a one-against-one, it was to con one of them to death before facing the last one. He felt immense regret at this moment. He had actually thought himself smart, thinking that Long Chen had no way out and could only come up with such a desperate plan to leave both sides with nothing. He had even wanted to con Long Chen. The arrows rained down. Even their armor was useless to protect them from these sharp arrows. The arrows could pierce the bodies of several experts before running out of energy. "Attack the city!" Tuo Ming quickly shouted. He knew that if he retreated now, they would only be live targets for these archers. Furthermore, once they retreated, the army within the city would also flood out. Once they retreated, their morale would plummet and they would be disorganized. Without the will to fight, they would collapse rapidly. Only a small portion of them would survive. If that was the case, it was better to go all out and attack the city. He believed that the city's grand formation had only recovered to at most 50% power after 2 days of recovery. With so many people attacking, it would definitely fall in less than an incense stick's worth of time. They had more people. Even if he had to use all their lives, he would still have a shot at victory. "Kill!" Tuo Ming roared and charged at the city. His target was the grand formation. Once the formation was broken, his people would flood the city, and the arrows would no longer have a use. If he broke into the city, he would win. Boom. 2 bone swords crossed, sealing the world around him. After that, 2 slender figures appeared, blocking his path. In a clash of 3 gods, Tuo Ming was sent flying. "This battlefield will be your burial ground," snorted Leng Yueyan. Like a flicker of black lightning, she shot at Tuo Ming. Her sharp sword slashed toward his head. Tuo Ming was shocked. Combined, both of them were incredibly powerful. He suddenly had a bad feeling. Just as he was about to block Leng Yueyan's sword, his expression completely changed. He felt a cold chill in his ribs. Ming Zongyue had silently appeared to his left like a flitting butterfly, her bone sword piercing his side like a fiend's fang. The two of them cooperated seamlessly. Feeling shocked, Tuo Ming raised his arm. Then a circular shield appeared on it. At the same time, the spear in his right hand smashed toward Leng Yueyan. He managed to stop Ming Zongyue's bone sword from further wounding him. But Leng Yueyan's sword slashed his neck, leaving a large opening in his blood-colored armor. His fresh blood flowed out. If it hadn't been for his armor, his head might have flown off. "How can you be so distracted? You are playing with your life," sneered Leng Yueyan. She and Ming Zongyue were both 2 separate beings and one whole existence. They could share their thoughts. When one person attacked, the other instantly knew how to cooperate perfectly. Their combination was flawless. Tuo Ming had actually launched a forceful attack on them without even realizing this. He viewed them as twins without being aware that they were far more terrifying than he gave them credit for. Bone swords whistled through the air. The chilling sharpness coming from them made Tuo Ming roar as he was forced back over and over again. He was stabbed several times and left bleeding. If it weren't for his armor possessing a powerful self-recovery ability, he would probably have been turned into a sieve by the 2 of them. Leng Yueyan and Ming Zongyue were like black butterflies flitting through the air with their black dresses and hair swirling around them. Their beauty possessed a fatal threat. Tuo Ming didn't even have the ability to counterattack. As for the battle for the city, it was chaotic. Just as Tuo Ming's subordinates charged the city, countless archers on the walls appeared like phantoms. Cold arrow tips pointed at Tuo Ming's people. "Fire!" Following an order, hundreds of thousands of archers shot their arrows at the same time. They were like bolts of lightning raining down on the attackers, which then collapsed in droves. Seeing these archers shooting rapidly as if the arrows were free, Long Chen was moved. The Longbow race truly had refined archery arts. Even an ordinary member of the Longbow race possessed terrifying killing power. It was as if they lived for archery. The runes on their arms automatically activated, giving every arrow incredible sharpness. They all aimed at the vitals of the immortal kings. Even on this chaotic battlefield, they were like falcons eyeing their prey. They were frighteningly accurate. After a single wave of arrows, hundreds of thousands of immortal kings were slain. Spirit tier and below immortal kings were nothing more than targets. As for those beneath the immortal king level, they were simply ants. These archers couldn't even bother to shoot them, considering it a waste of an arrow. The invaders managed to reach a distance not too far from the walls, but they were unable to advance past the rain of arrows. After failing 3 times, their corpses littered the ground and they were finally too afraid to try again. Most terrifying of all was that they had had 9 Earth-tier immortal kings. But after those 3 waves, those 9 Earth-tier immortal kings had been reduced to 7. 2 had been killed simply by those arrows. They had no idea where those arrows came from. They also didn't know where the archers were hidden. They were in complete chaos. Seeing that Changgong Hao had killed 2 Earth-tier immortal kings, Long Chen felt a burning sensation inside. He would have to raise a group of divine archers in the Dragon Blood Legion. This kind of killing power was simply terrifying. After seeing the enemy in chaos, Long Chen returned his focus to the sky. But space was too twisted in that battlefield for him to even see what was going on. However, he could hear Tuoming's furious roars. Long Chen walked to the city gates and shouted, "You fools, why are you still resisting? You are lucky enough to keep your life. Shouldn't you be grateful? As long as you stop fighting and join us, I, Boss Long San, swear on my soul that not a single hair on your head will be harmed. Just who do you want to follow? Of your 2 bosses, 1 is already dead, and Tuoming will only last a few more minutes before being killed. Are you selling your lives for them? Can they see your heroism?" Long Chen's voice resounded throughout the battlefield. It was like an alarm waking them up from a stupor. If both of them died, why would they need to throw their lives away? Don't listen to him. Tac dash. Tuoming's furious roar rang out, only for the distraction to result in him being injured. The sound of him coughing up blood rang out. It would have been better for him not to say anything. Now that he did, it proved that he was at an absolute disadvantage. At this moment, Long Chen waved his hand, and those archers stopped shooting. It just so happens that we need new talents to join us. Thus, I'll give you a chance. I won't force you to reply right now. You don't need to do anything at all, and you can just stand there. If you surrendered now, it would be a betrayal, so why don't we simply gamble? If Tuoming's head doesn't fall within an incense stick's worth of time, I'll directly let all of you leave safely. If Tuoming dies, you join us. Do you accept? Shouted Long Chen. Hearing this, those people lost all their backbone and simply stared at each other, not knowing what to do. They looked up at the sky, neither accepting nor declining. Long Chen smiled. Everything was going according to his predictions. Time passed bit by bit. Suddenly, a head in a helmet fell from the sky and smashed into the ground in front of them. Looking at that head, Long Chen's smile widened. They couldn't see the face since the entire head was covered in a helmet. However, the helmet was badly damaged now. The head rolled in front of them. After that, space twisted, and Leng Yueyan and Ming Songyue appeared behind Long Chen. Their bone swords were then sheathed on their backs once more, their movements identical. Now, the atmosphere grew tense. Tuoming's subordinates, as well as the ones brought by the hatchet wielder, gulped. They were dumbfounded. Their leaders were dead, so they had no idea what to do. It seems that I overestimated Tuoming. He didn't even last half an incense stick's worth of time. How disappointing. Long Chen shook his head as if Tuoming had let him down. He had actually made such a grave misjudgment with his estimate. Alright, it's now up to you. You all have 2 paths. Either pledge loyalty to the great and mighty divine masters, Leng Yueyan and Ming Songyue, or heroically die, using your deaths to display your heroism and unbending natures. We'll start from the bottom to the top. Those who want to live, step forward. Those who wish to die, stay where you are. Our archers will take your names in a bit. Thank you for your cooperation, said Long Chen indifferently. In the end, reality proved that people preferred to live. In particular, after one of the Earth-tier Nether Kings stepped forward, the others also followed. In truth, this meant nothing to them. It didn't particularly matter who they followed. There was no need for them to throw their lives away. After all, they were not from the Nethergod race of the Netherworld. They couldn't control their own world. As they couldn't become divine masters, it was fated for them to find a powerful divine master as a backer. In comparison, Ming Songyue and Leng Yueyan had immense potential. Following them would definitely be better than following Tuaming. Most importantly, as Earth-tier Nether Kings, they possessed such power that they would receive preferential treatment wherever they went. They didn't need to worry about being killed. It was just that all Netherworld's experts had their own dignity. If Tuaming didn't die and they surrendered, they would have to carry the label of traitor for the rest of their lives. However, now that Tuaming had died, there was nothing holding them back from surrendering. There was a great difference. Long Chen could also be said to have given them face, not forcing them to make a decision before they could. As a result, millions of experts ended up joining Ming Songyue's side. Furthermore, they were elites that not only replenished their losses in battle, but even strengthened them by more than twofold. In this battle, Ming Songyue's side hadn't lost a single soldier. The divine archers had truly shocked everyone. Changgong Hao had managed to win face for his race, and he instantly became Ming Songyue's most important general. After taking them all in, Long Chen had Ming Songyue quickly take over the territories of those two. Those newly joined experts also helped to express their sincerity. Hence, in just a day, both their territories entered their pockets. As a result, the two of them gained control over even more of the Netherworld's laws. They obtained even more recognition from the heavenly Daos and would grow stronger. After stealthily taking over other territories, their forces grew even stronger. The two of them were delighted. Long Chen was truly their lucky star, bringing them one stroke of good fortune after another. They now controlled the cores of 2 more world domains. After that, they constructed channels between them and directly brought any idlers in the other 2 regions to this place to repair their grand formation. The two of them had found this place as a piece of masterless wilderness. Before anyone else found it, the two of them had condensed a divine core, giving them more territory, more recognition from the heavenly Daos, and more power. This world domain's core was also known as the divine core. It was like a lantern in the dark, or perhaps it could be considered creating a star in the cosmos. When the star was ignited, it became a part of the operation of the heavenly Daos. Whoever ignited it would contribute more merit and would be given control over its laws. However, this so-called control was not absolute control. It was more like overseeing it. Ming Songyue could borrow its power, but she couldn't change its natural operation. For example, when Ming Songyue was controlling part of the Netherworld's laws, she was only able to stealthily pull Long Chen from the proper path but didn't dare to change the laws of the actual channel. One mistake and she would also be implicated. Even a god was restricted by certain forces. It was like a pair of ancient hands were in charge of the operation of the world. Gods could only seize opportunities and gain some benefits from that operation, but they didn't dare to defy the heavens. Through this understanding, Long Chen found that the world that they controlled was like a mirror or perhaps a duplicate. A superposition. It was connected to another world, but that world was something that they could only see, not interact with. Long Chen asked Leng Yueyan about that world, but Leng Yueyan shook her head, not letting him ask about it. After all, Long Chen wasn't a god. It wasn't appropriate for him to learn about those things lest she caused unfortunate karma to befall him. She only told him that the Netherworld's Nethergod race were overseers of the laws, but not the creators. There were many secrets within the 9 heavens and 10 lands that were not available for him to ask about. Just 3 days after taking in Tuaming's subordinates, an unexpected thing occurred that shocked Long Chen, Ming Songyue, and Leng Yueyan. Long Chen actually broke through to the 8th heaven stage of 4 peak here. Long Chen was clearly from the immortal world. Theoretically, he needed to absorb the spiritual qi of the immortal world and rely on the help of the immortal world's laws to advance. However, it seemed that Long Chen wasn't restricted by this requirement. He had been constantly consuming pills as usual. Seeing that the pills were absorbed quite well, he hadn't paid too much attention to it. But he hadn't expected to actually advance here. Even Ming Zongyue and Leng Yueyan had no explanation for such a thing. When they first met, Leng Yueyan had used her sword to insert her own divine rune into his body to prevent him from being rejected by the Netherworld's laws. That would prevent his realm from falling and affecting his cultivation. However, that rune couldn't possibly change a person's entire constitution. Furthermore, the aura within Long Chen's body was still immortal spiritual qi. But he had still advanced. It was inexplicable. This advancement made Long Chen think that the 9-star hegemon body art was a heaven-defying cultivation technique that could defy the laws of heaven and earth. However, that also seemed wrong. That was because 9-star heirs only appeared in the immortal world. There were no 9-star heirs in the Netherworld. Even after racking their brains, they were unable to figure it out. Long Chen directly gave up and continued to cultivate in the Netherworld. He naturally wouldn't give up any chance to improve himself. Originally, Leng Yueyan and Ming Zongyue should have been in a rush to develop their new land, but Long Chen asked them to accompany him in training. The two of them truly cooperated with him. In an instant, he was filled with bloody holes. They didn't give him any face at all. Their cooperation technique was seamless. Even with Long Chen's combat experience, he was forced back wretchedly. Even though both of them suppressed their realms to the same level as Long Chen was left covered in blood after every fight. If it was a true battle, it was unknown just how many times he would have died. 3 days later, another explosion echoed within Long Chen's aura. His aura explosively charged to the 9th heaven stage of 4 peak. Long Chen was covered in blood, and his flesh was exposed in many spots. But his aura was thrumming powerfully. Qi waves surged out of him, shaking the surrounding space. Ming Zongyue and Leng Yueyan became his sparring partners, so naturally they would give him the strictest training. Although they did their best to avoid vitals, they still pushed Long Chen to the brink of death to constantly draw out his potential. In this state, the peakless pills were constantly absorbed. It was unknown if it was because of the change in surroundings, but Long Chen advanced even easier. It took him 3 days to rise from the 8th heaven stage to the 9th heaven stage. That was something that Long Chen hadn't dared to even dream of. What power! His blood, flesh, tendons, bones, essence, qi, and spirit all increased. There aren't 4 peaks at all. His cultivation technique is truly astonishing, said Ming Zongyue in shock. Even as a god who oversaw countless races and had seen countless ways that the heavenly Daos could manifest, she had never seen such a heaven-defying cultivation technique. Again, Long Chen was revitalized. Ming Zongyue and Leng Yueyan were practically bullying him, but it was precisely this state that allowed him to absorb the peakless pills faster. This was a rare chance for him to rapidly improve himself, so he definitely couldn't miss it. Under their combined attacks, Long Chen remained at an absolute disadvantage. With their minds connected, their attacks came in an unending stream that didn't give him the slightest opening. As soon as he attacked, he faced a lethal counterattack. If he didn't defend, he would be hacked to death. After his training with Luo Zichuan, Long Chen had gained a far higher understanding of the principles of techniques. In the face of any expert, there was always a chance to attack and defend. Even if it was against an enemy that could not be beaten, that was simply due to them possessing absolute power, not because his technique was inferior. However, against Leng Yueyan and Ming Zongyue, none of his techniques was useful. The support of the heavenly Daos? Meaningless. That was because both of them were gods. They were the heavens, and they were in control of this territory's laws. Unless Long Chen became a god as well in charge of the world's laws, there was no way he could fight them. Their power made him think of his 108,000 stars. He was also the master of his own worlds, but he couldn't control the laws like the two of them. At most, he could control some of their power. But the existence known as laws was not something he had come into contact with yet. Long Chen trained during the day and recovered during the night. Accompanied by these two beautiful gods, every day was a painful joy. 7 days later, Long Chen advanced again to reach the 10th heaven stage. Ming Zongyue had thought that he would be advancing to the Divine Lord realm, not knowing that he had 13 heaven stages. The explosive power of the 10th heaven stage was so great that Long Chen needed some time to get accustomed to it. So, he had no choice but to settle down. Based on his estimates, the power of his physical body had almost doubled from the 9th heaven stage. And it wasn't just his physical body, his blood chi, spiritual strength, and even his 108,000 stars had all changed. He needed to get used to his new power for now. If he continued crazily climbing realms, his foundation would grow unstable. With Long Chen getting accustomed to his new cultivation base, Ming Zongyue and Leng Yueyan hastily got to work on their new territories. It was 3 days later that Long Chen just barely managed to control his new power. It was also at this time that they received information that this wild territory had drawn the attention of other powers. Furthermore, this time it was even worse. Multiple powers had noticed and sent spies to keep an eye on them. They were just like Tuo Ming looking for their chance. What made Ming Zongyue uneasy was that these powers were very cool-headed. They only watched from the dark. If Long Chen hadn't helped them set up an alarm system around their new territories, they might not have even noticed the spies. The alarm system was some threads he had brought from the immortal world. These threads didn't exist in the Netherworld, so they could be well hidden. When someone touched them, they would break without drawing any attention. The minute that they were broken, the connected photographic jades activated, recording what was happening. It was only due to this that they knew they had been targeted once more. Based on the various races and equipment of these newcomers, there were multiple powers this time. Right now, their only advantage was that the other side was unaware that they had been noticed. So, Long Chen and the others continued to act like they were in the dark. That very night, the two of them discussed with Long Chen how to handle this new problem. Although they were also gods, when it came to scheming, they couldn't compare to Long Chen. After looking at the recordings, Long Chen pondered for a long time before saying, "It seems that right at the start, there were at least 6 waves of people who came to spy on us. However, those spies silently left after looking at us. They are very cautious and resolute." "You mean that?" Ming Zongyue's heart fell. Long Chen nodded. "It seems that those powers have an agreement. They know each other and have yet to decide on their next step." "That was what I was most worried about," said Ming Zongyue. "If 6 powers truly allied to attack them, then there was no way that they could win. Furthermore, those scouts were no fools. Tuo Ming's army had previously attacked this place, and that left scars that had yet to be cleaned up. Through those scars, they could get a general understanding of their power. Their enemies would not attack until they were sure to succeed. It would be a thunderous attack that didn't give Ming Zongyue any chance to win. If my guess is correct, they are most likely sitting together, discussing how to attack us, how many soldiers every side should contribute, and how they will split the spoils afterward," said Long Chen. Leng Yueyan and Ming Zongyue nodded. That was very likely. If they wanted to attack together, they would need to make a plan and gather their forces. Ming Zongyue's side now had 4 strongholds. One was their old, initial home. One was this place. And 2 more were taken from Tuo Ming and the other expert. Those strongholds all needed trusted people guarding them. If their enemies were to attack one place, they would be doomed. So, Leng Yueyan needed to make some preparations. Suddenly, Ming Zongyue took out a mirror. 6 small red dots flashed on it. "We found them." Long Chen had not just set up an alarm system. Anyone who touched those threads would be infected by a specific energy, which was something Ming Zongyue had put in. Through this faint energy, she could find the other side's position. "Since we've found them, let's not wait. We'll make the first move." Long Chen clenched his fist. This time, it would probably be a bit dangerous. "But we don't know anything about them. How are we supposed to attack?" asked a startled Ming Zongyue. "That's why I said it would be a bit dangerous. We don't have time to accurately judge their bottom line. They're going to attack soon, and they view us as a piece of fat meat. As soon as they have a rough plan, they'll be sure to attack. If it's 6 against 1, how will we win? There's no need for us to plan anything. Let's just attack. That's our only chance," said Long Chen. "All right, we'll listen to you. What plan do you have?" said Ming Songyue. When it came to this kind of experience, she knew that she couldn't compare to Long Chen. Gather the troops. You and Leng Yueyan will each lead a group. Look at their positions. Their territories are a semicircle around us. You'll attack the ones furthest from the center. Based on their locations, their meeting is being held in one of these two locations, either here or here. Long Chen pointed at two of the red spots at the center. Our greatest advantage is that they don't know we've noticed them. While their masters aren't present, we can easily break through the formations of their territories and destroy their divine cores. Once the first core is destroyed, immediately move to the next target. If they return to defend, we will immediately retreat. If they don't defend, continue destroying them. How can they not return to defend? Are you? Leng Yueyan looked at Long Chen in shock. We'll split into 3 paths. I will go directly to them and start a party with them, said Long Chen. Unacceptable. Are you trying to draw their attention? I'd rather give up on this place than take that risk. Leng Yueyan and Ming Songyue's expressions changed. This idea was absolutely crazy. They could not accept it. Long Chen smiled. I'm no fool. Do you think I would send myself to my death? I've prepared my way out. Long Chen explained what he was thinking. The two of them were still a bit hesitant, but after hearing what he told them, they truly felt that it wasn't too risky. Ultimately, after Long Chen pushed them, they agreed to this crazy idea. Long Chen then instantly took off his clothes. Leng Yueyan and Ming Songyue pressed their hands against his chest. After that, black chi swirled out and the laws of the Netherworld weaved together, forming a black cloak around Long Chen. This cloak was created by the laws of the Netherworld. It was the specific power of a nether god. Due to Long Chen and the two of them having been intimate, he was already touched by the aura of nether gods. So, with this set of robes, his aura was just like that of a nether god. However, there was no way to cover up his aura of the Four-Peak realm. Long Chen's original bone saber had been damaged in the chaotic flow of time, and in their training session, Leng Yueyan had ended up cutting it apart. For now, Long Chen lacked a suitable weapon. Leng Yueyan then found a jagged saber in Tuo Ming's treasure. It was the weapon of a god, with its specific aura. It was 7 feet long and as heavy as a mountain. But it didn't feel too comfortable in Long Chen's hands. It was just barely usable. After putting this sinister jagged saber on his back, he looked at himself in the mirror and no longer recognized himself. Leng Yueyan had also modified his appearance a bit, adding a full beard to his face. He definitely looked big and powerful. A murderous aura then surged out of him, and he appeared exceptionally domineering. Leng Yueyan gave him a jade talisman, his life-saving talisman. As soon as the situation turned sour, as long as he fled out of the opposing side's grand formation, this talisman would directly bring him back to their territory. However, the two of them were worried that facing so many gods, Long Chen wouldn't have any chance to crush it. Long Chen seemed assured of himself though. As long as the other side didn't have a combination technique like Leng Yueyan and Ming Songyue, he wasn't afraid. Even if it was against heaven-tier immortal kings, he was confident that he could get away. After his disguise was finished, their army gathered. The three of them stealthily set out, directly using the formation to reach the edge of their territory. Outside of this region, the land was wilderness. There were no laws here, but there was mist, like the land was a mass of primal chaos. Suddenly, a river blocked their path. The water was as black as ink and filled with the aura of death. It also gave off a violent, tyrannical smell. This aura, it seems similar to the Devil Sea? Long Chen eyed that black water with surprise. Don't get close to the Black Sea. There are fiend spirits down below. If you disturb them, we'll be in trouble. If you end up drawing out some primal chaos species, we might even be completely wiped out, said Ming Songyue when she saw him reach out to touch the black water. Long Chen was startled. It seemed that the Netherworld was full of taboos and dangers. Even gods had to be so careful. Leng Yueyan formed hand seals and murmured something. After that, black chi swirled, condensing into a small boat. The boat then flew out of her hand, and by the time it landed on the water, it became a giant ship many miles long. Long Chen and the others entered the ship, which slowly flowed across the water. There were over 100,000 experts on the ship, none of whom dared to even make a sound. They were all terrified of this black water. The Netherworld's Black Sea is like a network of blood vessels. It is so deep that you can't see the bottom. The fiend spirits inside are not part of the Six Daos, and they possess a bizarre power. Thus, unless people have no choice, they will not cross the Black Sea. One mistake, and they will be buried at the bottom of the sea. Yueyan and I crossed 7 regions of the Black Sea because we had no other choice. Only then did we find this wild territory to take over. Now that I think back to it, with our cultivation bases of that time, it really was dangerous, said Ming Zongyue. Long Chen's heart warmed. He held Ming Zongyue and Leng Yuan's hands. He knew that the reason they had no choice was because of him. To have driven 2 gods to the point of such desperation to get stronger, he was extremely moved. This particular section of the Black Sea is very wide. If we didn't have a target, we wouldn't dare to go through such a wide stretch. I trust that they also wouldn't dare to do such a thing. Most likely, the battle last time drew their attention, and they only crossed this section because they knew our general direction, said Ming Zongyue. Tua Ming's territory was separated from theirs by 2 sections of the Black Sea. They were both very active sections as well. Tua Ming himself had never crossed it before since he didn't know that there was anything worthwhile beyond it. It was only when Leng Yueyan attacked the Nether King realm that his attention was drawn and he crossed over. This section of the Black Sea was very wide. Even now, Leng Yueyan and Ming Zongyue were nervous about crossing it. They were as careful as possible. As for Long Chen, he was lost in thought. Back in the Heavenly Rainbow Fairy's mental domain, he had seen the full view of the 9 heavens and 10 lands. Back then, he saw endless nebulas and also countless vessels connecting the nebulas, but he still didn't know what those vessels were. Was this Black Sea the Netherworld's vessels? After 3 days, they finally reached the other shore. Leng Yueyan and Ming Zongyue sighed with relief. As for the others, it was as if they had been relieved from a heavy burden. Everything's going according to plan. Don't worry about me. Long Chen hugged both of them tightly. With the jagged saber on his back, he set off in a certain direction. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.